before a court of law and their guilt or innocence is properly tested, that he's held to account.
Well, the people of Lebanon, Stephen, inside and outside, they know what is the way and the path forward to a true country, to a true government, to a true nation. Whatever I'm saying will not impact them, because they know that saying the truth and facing those issues is the only way out. They are people that always have hope. They are people that always will come back to Lebanon. But they know unless we hold people responsible, unless we acknowledge and say that we know what our problem is, we will never get a better Lebanon. We will never build a real country. We need to acknowledge our problem. We need to say where the government messed up for the past 20 years and start putting people in jail and holding people accountable.
Amin Salam, I thank you very much for joining me on Hard Talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
That was Hard Talk. I'm Saroja Coelho. You're listening to CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team at Information Radio. This is CBC. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. And the high today in the city is going to be 12 degrees. We will have a mix of sun and cloud. Good morning to the team. Good morning, Brad Lillies behind the glass. Good morning, Corey Funk, directing the show and covering the commute. And Mr. Abby Adiyemi, good morning to you. Abby's our technical producer and covers weather on air with us here on the show. If you need us on the early morning drive, 788-3093, and that number won't change through the morning. So please use it if you have any challenges out there, speaking of the commute. Heather Wells is also here from our CBC Manitoba News Centre, and here she is at 3 minutes to 6 with your day's headlines.
Good morning. Well, a parent who filed a human rights complaint against the Hanover School Division 7 years ago is troubled by new concerns about discrimination. A controversial policy would give Hanover school trustees final say in the hiring of gym and music teachers. Some parents want the province to remove 6 trustees. Michelle McHale says principals and superintendents should be the ones hiring teachers, not trustees. Downtown Winnipeg's going to be covered by a whiteout again tonight, and that street party means some downtown streets are going to start shutting down at 9 this morning. Southbound Donald between Portage and St. Mary Avenue both ways, of Graham between Hargrave and Smith. Transit buses are also being rerouted in that area, and starting at noon, sidewalks will also close on Donald along with the north side of Graham. So something to be wary of as we prepare for the Winnipeg Jets tonight. Our rest will be back with more news coming up at 6:30. I'm nervous for the Jets. That's what the problem is.
You're doing your best. You're wearing white.
I try.
I'm wearing black, but I brought my jersey, so it's behind me, so I might stick it on later if we think that's good luck. But maybe hanging it over as a prop will have new vibes.
Good. Try anything.
Yeah, we need some new vibes. All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
In the program today, we are going to be talking a little bit about Jets whiteout parties, fans all nervous about the big game tonight, of course, do or die. In addition to another story, a retired veteran who lives in the Brandon area says that MPI denied him a personal license plate that says D-Day. And we'll hear how he's still fighting for it and why he wanted to get the plate in the first place based on his own family history with D-Day. So stay tuned. That and much more coming up right now, though. It's time for World Report on CBC at 6.
On Cue with Tom Power.
I thought that somebody had abducted you, but it turns out you are just sleeping in.
Laura Ramoso has over 1 million followers on TikTok and Instagram, mainly for her hilarious impersonations of her German mom and Italian dad. The Toronto-based sketch comic will tell you about getting off the screen and back onto the stage in her new one-woman show. That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Protesters have barricaded themselves inside an administrative building at New York's Columbia University. Dozens of people stormed Hamilton Hall overnight during pro-Palestinian demonstrations. Others gathered outside. They want the university to sever all financial ties with Israel and Israeli institutions. School officials are now telling people to avoid the campus if they can. The CBC's Richard Madden joins me. And Richard, what is the latest?
Yeah, tensions are escalating. Overnight, protesters smashed windows at one of its main academic buildings, blocking the entrance by stacking chairs and tables in front of it, refusing to leave the grounds. Now, many are covering their faces with masks and wearing helmets and forming a chain to stop students from going inside. Now, college leaders had warned those protesters to leave the encampment by 2 p.m. yesterday or be disciplined, insisting some have already been suspended. But as of now, hundreds of protesters are still on campus and aren't leaving. Some students say they've been threatened, even attacked by protesters as they tried to get inside.
They've just been targeting students, whomever they can find, calling them Zionists. And if you hear them, they chant, "We don't want no Zionists here." So to me, that's a genocidal call, and that's a threat.
Now, Columbia may be the epicenter of this protest movement, but it's happening on dozens of college campuses across the country: Pennsylvania, Virginia, California, even George Washington University here in D.C. Some commencement and graduation ceremonies have since been canceled as the unrest shows no signs of slowing down.
What are we hearing from school officials?
Yeah, they've said many of these protesters aren't actual students. Those who are have been suspended, but many of these protesters cite freedom of speech. Police have been called in to clear the area, but it isn't having much of an impact. And all this comes as Secretary of State Antony Blinken joined other world leaders in Jordan pushing for a ceasefire in Gaza. But as those talks continue, so do the protests.
All right, thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. And here at home, McGill University says it will work to de-escalate before asking for police help with the encampment there. Dozens of tents are still pitched on the lawn of the school's downtown Montreal campus. Pro-Palestinian protesters have also set up an encampment at the University of British Columbia's Point Grey campus. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is promising to get tough on crime. He says he will change bail rules and he will bring in stricter punishments for serious offenders. Poilievre made those promises in front of an audience of police officers in Ottawa yesterday. As Tom Perry reports, the speech is raising questions about how Poilievre would enact his plan.
Thank you very much to all of you in blue.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre speaking to the Canadian Police Association, offering his usual tough-on-crime message with a few flourishes.
Multiple murders will only ever come out of jail in a box.
Promising to keep anyone convicted of multiple murder in maximum security and force them to serve consecutive sentences.
And all of my proposals are constitutional, and we will make them constitutional using whatever tools the Constitution allows me to use to make them constitutional. I think you know exactly what I mean.
Poilievre didn't say which tools, but in the past, he has talked about using the notwithstanding clause.
There has not been a thought given to the long-term impact on Canada.
Errol Mendez teaches constitutional law at the University of Ottawa. He says going after the worst criminals may be good politics, but Mendez says no federal government has ever used the notwithstanding clause, which allows governments to temporarily override the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. He worries doing so would set a bad precedent.
Essentially, it's the straw that'll break the camel's back and lead to eventually the denigration of the Charter as a whole.
In his speech, Poilievre said as Prime Minister, he would be accountable to the people, that it would be up to them to decide whether his laws were constitutional. Tom Perry, CBC News, Ottawa.
We are watching the International Court of Justice this morning. In a few hours, the World Court will rule on a request from Nicaragua. It wants judges to order Germany to halt military aid to Israel. Nicaragua argued that Berlin's support enables acts of genocide and breaches of international law in Gaza. Germany argued that that case has no basis in facts or law. Efforts to reach a global treaty on plastic pollution are proving contentious. The fourth round of talks wrapped up in the early hours this morning in Ottawa. For the first time, negotiators started discussing some draft text for the treaty, but the delegate for Rwanda says it does not go far enough.
The proposal for intercession work has decided to ignore the elephant in the room.
He says right now there's too much talk about recycling and reusing plastics, and the text needs to address plastic manufacturing. Rwanda and Peru helped launch the treaty talks. The committee has agreed to keep working on the proposed language. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni says she will stand as a candidate in June's European elections. But in a controversial move, she says she will not take a seat if she wins. It is all about attracting voters to her hard-right Brothers of Italy party, and it's a move more politicians than Italy are embracing. Megan Williams has more from Rome.
Ho deciso di scendere in campo per guidare le liste di Fratelli d'Italia in tutte le...
Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni announcing this week that she'll run for European elections in June as leader of her far-right Brothers of Italy party. But if elected a member of European Parliament, she'll give up her seat to a runner-up candidate. It's a controversial and mostly Italian practice, a way for big names in national politics to pull in more votes in European elections that most people here don't care about.
When it comes to European elections, Italian politicians see those elections as an opportunity for visibility and as an opinion poll on how a government is doing,
says Italy politics expert Cecilia Emma Sottilotta. Leaders of other political parties here are also lending their name to the European lists. But Meloni's taken it a step further, urging voters to simply pen her first name on the European ballot.
Ma il mio nome di battesimo, Giorgia.
Jurists say it's legal. But Sottilotta says the move shows Italy is returning to a kind of politics brought in by controversial former Prime Minister, the late Silvio Berlusconi.
We are once again seeing a strengthening of this trend of the personalization of politics, and it's all around Meloni, really.
Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
King Charles is back at work, resuming his public duties. He and Camilla are visiting a cancer treatment charity this morning. It marks King Charles' comeback. He had been sidelined for 3 months with his own cancer diagnosis. This is the first formal event since early February, and there will be several more public appearances in the coming weeks. The cost of everything is on the rise in Canada. Many families are feeling the pinch, especially those who buy baby formula. Statistics Canada says the cost of formula has gone up by 30% over the past 2 years, and that financial strain is forcing some parents to cut back on other essentials. The CBC's Jonathan Mignot has more.
We're at this point now where sometimes we do have to sacrifice. And
Caitlin Tan says she was able to feed her first child formula at a reasonable cost, but that was 8 years ago. The Sudbury, Ontario mom says feeding her 5-month-old is more of a struggle.
There have been months where we've had to go without paying our phone bill and ended up losing our service for a short time because we just, we had to put money towards formula and feeding our son.
Formula shortages are less common today than they were 2 years ago, but costs have continued to surge. According to Statistics Canada, the average price increased 30% between February 2022 and February 2024. Leslie Frank is the Canada Research Chair in Food, Health, and Social Justice at Acadia University in Nova Scotia. She has studied the high cost of baby formula and its effect on families for 15 years. While formula makers cite rising costs for ingredients and labor for rising formula prices, Frank says there could be another reason.
We hear less about the fact that the market around infant formula is not a competitive market, right? There's a few big players, and often what keeps prices low is competition.
Regulators in the United Kingdom are investigating the high infant formula costs in that country. Frank says it would take a similar investigation in Canada to get to the bottom of rising prices domestically. Jonathan Mignot, CBC News, Sudbury.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report News Anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
One degree. That's all I got for you, Winnipeg. Welcome to the show. This is Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Time right now is 6:10 a.m. and this hour on the program. Last year in this city, over 1,400 bikes were reported stolen. Yesterday, you might have heard Mayor Scott Gillingham announcing a new bike registration system to hopefully lower that number. We're going to hear from a cyclist who recently had his bike stolen, so stay tuned for that. In addition, this hour, how detrimental is social media to how a young woman in specifically might view themselves? A York University professor studied that specifically, the impact of social media on young women's self-esteem. So we're going to hear more about that study. So stay tuned. This is Information Radio. First, let's go to Heather Wells and find out what's making news locally this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. A retired soldier in Brandon is fighting Manitoba Public Insurance to get a license plate to honor his late father. Timothy Yakubowicz wants a personalized plate for his motorcycle. He wants it to read D-Day. He says that's the best way to honor his father, who was a Second World War vet who fought on Juno Beach on D-Day. But he says MPI has twice denied his request, saying the message could be linked to violence and is considered a political statement. We're going to hear more from him coming up. And the wives and girlfriends of Winnipeg Jets players have stepped up their whiteout gear. They are wearing custom puffer jackets made from white heritage jerseys. We'll hear all about that as well coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, we're doing our best here. Abby, you look like you tried to wear. You've got white on. It's
yeah,
whitish.
a bit of whitish. Yes, like sky bluish white.
I'm wearing black.
Oh,
Corey's wearing,
I'm wearing
like
every color but
every
white.
color but white. Did y'all see that meme of the guy that was wearing salmon at the Jets game?
Yes, I
yeah,
saw
the sea
that.
of white. I love that. And then they everybody superimposing the mayor when he changed a tire, and then everybody took that sort of wob canoe pose and they put it all over things, just like you would. So they have him handing the guy a Jets jersey in the crowd. Yeah, that was one of them. I laughed my head off at those things. I did. I thought they were so funny. My favorite ones was when the premier was in a store, like helping sort beads or cleaning up or milking cows, and he was everywhere.
I saw one of him skinning a moose.
Yeah. He was like it was like burning with the mitts, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the forecast.
I
here
saw him
today.
with flamingos.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
I've seen the flamingo version.
Was he putting out like yard flamingos or something?
I think it was feeding the flamingos, and he's like, it's almost season.
I think he also had as reported by APTN, he also had a good laugh at it himself. So, all right, let's get into the forecast.
Yes, it's the last day of April, and the city's waking up to a chilly 1 degree with cloudy skies. A bit chilly outside, I'll tell you. Now, the forecast for today will be bringing a mix of sun and clouds and those pesky fog patches. Some people reported that in the southern part of the province and the southern part of the city, they will be dissipating as we get into the morning. Now, as we progress into the morning, you should be expecting a wind shift towards the east, and the temperatures for today will be reaching a high of 12. It's really actually shaping up to be a nice day. Now, tonight we are going to be seeing clouds roll in, and there's a high chance of showers overnight. So don't forget to bring your umbrellas if you're heading out. Now, across the province, Brandon is waking up to 0. It's clear out there. Thompson is at 2. There's going to be a chance of showers this morning. Churchill, it's at -3. Dauphin -2. Gimli -4. Steinbach -2. Morris seeing some fog patches fading this morning at 2 degrees. Winnipeg, the fog patches are lifting, and we'll be seeing mix of sun and clouds and heading to a high of 12 today.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
The commute, Corey.
Yeah, I got a call from Cautious Carrier. I know Abby just mentioned those fog patches. Still seems that there's a little bit of fog on Highway 12 around the Steinbach area, is what he was saying. About 300, 400 feet of visibility is what Cautious Carrier was saying. So heads up if you're hitting Highway 12 this morning. Also, on the highways, Highway 75, just a reminder for folks, might be slower going if you're planning to hit Highway 75, because the southbound lane, the entire southbound lanes are actually closed for construction right now between St. Agath and Morris. So what's actually happened doesn't mean you can't go south, obviously. It means that it's just down to one lane both ways between St. Agath and Morris, and 80 kilometers an hour. So much slower going if you are planning to head Highway 75 today. One final thing is look out for a big, mean, old pothole that wants to eat your tires on southbound King Edward just before McDermott. We got a call, play that call later, but from David Knock. Thanks for that call about just a really big pothole southbound King Edward just before McDermott. He saw while he was waiting for his car to get towed, essentially. He saw about 3 other people hit that same pothole and also see damage. So look out for that. If you see anything else going on out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, could a new app prevent bicycles from being stolen in Winnipeg? This is Mayor Scott Gillingham yesterday with an announcement about that.
I think almost all of us have been impacted in some way or another by bicycle theft. If it wasn't our own bike, then it's no doubt we know a neighbor or a friend whose bike has been stolen. I know my own son Andrew had his bike stolen last year, like so many other Winnipeggers, unfortunately. Theft prevention is critical for our community, and by getting more bikes registered, we can aim not only to help recover more stolen bicycles, but also to reunite them with their owners. But also, in addition to that, to deter theft from occurring in the first place. This new service is user-friendly and effective. Registering your bike connects you to a global network dedicated to bicycle security.
So 529 Garage is the name of the new city app that will allow people to register their bikes online for free. The database is replacing the current online bicycle registry. So if a stolen bike ends up in another city, it can be traced back to you. A local cyclist says the app is worth a try after his bike was stolen for the second time. Jimmy Skinner is a cyclist and stand-up comedian who lives in West Broadway. Faith Flindell asked him to take them back to the moment that they realized their bike was gone.
It's all very fresh in my mind. I've been having, I'm lucky enough that I have a vehicle that I can use as a backup.
Mm-hmm.
But, with the springtime, I was pretty excited to get back out on my bike and maybe save a little bit of money on gas. And as soon as I go down to the basement where we have our bike storage in our apartment, I open the door and notice that it wasn't there anymore. And, there's a lot of words that you can use to describe it, but I think it just stinks.
Yeah, and I'm sure it brought you back to the first time your bike was stolen. I mean, was it obvious to you? Was that the first thing that you thought of? Oh, no, my bike's stolen again.
Oh, yeah. Like if it's, so you have to use a key fob to get into the apartment building, obviously, but we also have to use a key fob to get into the bicycle storage area.
Right.
So it's just disappointing because, I assume that means somebody let in another person to come in and take my bike, and not only my bike, but a neighbor of mine's bike as well.
Do you have a sense of what might happen to the bike? Have you spoken to police?
I'd like to. I just, I don't want to be a person that's using up, their time trying to find my bicycle. And I know that there aren't really police officers going around looking for bicycles and loose bicycles. So I don't really hold my breath for it. And I'm already on the market looking for a new one.
I know you also like to go to the Winnipeg Stolen Bike Facebook page. Any leads so far?
No leads yet, but I just felt like that was a better option for me and maybe would actually yield some results. And I'm just kind of holding out hope somebody's going to find it, but it seems unlikely.
So we played audio from the mayor talking about 529 Garage, this new app. You heard him say his thing. What did you think?
I think it's a really nice idea on paper. But at the end of the day, like you slap a sticker on it with your SIN number, but what's stopping the person from stealing my bike from getting rid of the SIN number or taking that sticker off? Or it just doesn't seem like, are there police officers that are going to be roaming the city looking for loose bicycles and then bringing them back and then calling me to tell me I have to come pick it up, or will they be dropping it off? I just have a lot of questions.
What's next for your bike journey? I don't know if that's the right question to ask you. Do you intend on getting another bike?
I'll be spending a lot of time at home. No, I think I'm just back on Facebook Marketplace and messaging people and trying to find a new bike, and hopefully I can find one by tomorrow.
So if someone out there may have seen your bike, what does it look like?
It's a metallic purple CCM bike. It's really nothing special, but it's special to me.
What makes it so special?
It's just, summertime comes along, springtime comes along, and it's just, I want to be able to ride my bike through the city, and with all the new bike lanes opening up, and it's really just opening up to cyclists, and I want to be able to save some money and ride my bike to work from time to time. I think that's really nice, and now I have to spend more money to save more money and that it stinks.
Jimmy Skinner is a Winnipeg cyclist currently without his bicycle and also, by the way, a stand-up comedian. He was speaking there with CBC's Faith Bundal. His missing bike, by the way, is a purple CCM brand bicycle.
I'm Janet Stewart. Tuesday on our call-in conversation, we're talking sleep, and our guest knows a lot about the subject. He's the former director of the Sleep Lab. What helps you fall asleep? Do you have questions you'd like the doctor to answer? Call in live when we open our phone lines Tuesday at 12:30 or leave a message now, 204-788-3797.
Apparently, there's a beautiful sunrise happening. Abby, why don't you put your mic on? Because this is the one bad thing about being on television. Good morning, everyone. We love you. But I can't open the blinds in here.
Oh, Brad, maybe you just take it back to the sky, the sky view for me, and then I can describe that for you. You know the Wawanesa building just down on Portage on the north end?
Yes, yeah.
I can
near
see,
Broadway,
I can see the sun, just the golden feel.
Nice.
Reflects on the left side of that building.
Beauty. I love that.
So it's like a golden sunrise.
There's been some gorgeous. This is the time of year where we also get the pink. A couple nights ago, when the sun was setting, it was just beautiful pink. So enjoy it this morning. After yesterday was cloudy, a lot of people will be happy to see that reflection on the buildings downtown this morning. Now, don't be fooled because we are starting with only 1 degree, but we are supposed to have a nice mix of sun and cloud, hopefully more sun than cloud, and our high today a lot warmer than yesterday. It'll be 12 degrees. Well, next on the show, social media gives us a highlight reel of people's lives. It's filled with seemingly perfect faces and bodies, thanks to the countless filters and photo editing apps available. Now, new research from York University zooms in on how detrimental it can be for specifically young women's self-esteem. But it also looks at what happens if they take even a short break from platforms like Instagram and TikTok. Jennifer Mills is here to talk about it. Pardon me. She's co-author of the paper and a psychology professor at York University. Good morning.
Good morning.
So can you describe how you conducted and collected your data for your study?
Sure, yeah. So we recruited participants who were female university students at York. And in order to sign up for the study, they had to be interested and motivated to take a break from social media. We brought them in for the study, and we had them complete a number of questionnaires measuring different aspects of self-esteem and also body image. In other words, how they feel about their bodies. And then we randomly assigned them to one of two conditions. They were either asked to take a complete break from social media for 1 week or to continue with their normal use. And then we brought them back after 7 days, gave them the same questionnaires again, and asked them about how they felt about having taken the break. And when we looked at the data, those who had been in the break group had significantly better or more positive self-esteem, all different areas of self-esteem, and body image. So that is interesting because with the experimental design and random assignment, we can get closer to kind of proving the cause and effect, that if you take away social media, these aspects of well-being and psychological health actually improve. So that was really interesting and exciting for us.
Given this was a somewhat small sample, even still, what else might the research tell us about the harmful effects of social media on body image?
Yeah, well, it's really been, the past 10 years, the field of research on social media and body image has exploded. And a lot of the early studies showed a correlation, right? So the longer you spend on social media, the worse you feel about, various aspects of yourself. And those correlations are kind of important clues, but we're really at the point where we need to be doing these kinds of experimental studies to show cause and effect, and also to give people ideas about, guidelines or policies and even recommendations for people who might be especially at risk. So our study is the first one to show these kinds of effects on body image. I guess one takeaway is that the less time you can spend on social media, perhaps the better in terms of your psychological health. It was also really interesting to talk to the participants after they had taken the break from social media. Those who were in that group talked about what they felt or how they felt about the experiment. And a lot of them really enjoyed it. They wanted to continue staying off of social media, which was a surprise to us. We thought they'd be itching to get back on. And they talked about the kinds of things that they did instead of the time that they had been spending on social media, things like sleeping more, exercise, spending time outdoors, and ironically enough, spending time with friends. right? We think of social media as a way to connect with people and expand our social network. But in fact, when these participants were off of social media for a week, they said they spent more time texting or calling friends or spending time with them face to face.
How are the effects of social media different from the internalization of beauty standards that might come from reading magazines or watching movies? Because the conversation through that lens isn't different. That always had an impact. But I'm so curious how it's different. You know, the magazine, the images, the ads of models back in the day compared to the social media thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. When I started off doing research over 20 years ago, in fact, my PhD thesis was on the effects of fashion and beauty magazines. And so it's interesting to me, like it's kind of come full circle now, 20 years later. This is what I'm studying again. Back in the day, we knew that fashion and beauty magazines were not helpful. They could be harmful to certain individuals and lead to things like disordered eating, although, you know, eating disorders are very complicated and there's a lot of different factors. But the thing about fashion and beauty magazines is, you know, an issue would come out once a month, let's say. And if you had that issue, you could read it and then that was it. You could look at it again, but you're looking at the same kinds of images as before. Social media is a completely new thing where, you know, the stream of content is endless. The number of images and the types of images are infinite. And we can all kind of get stuck in algorithms where we get fed content and then it becomes a bit of an echo chamber. You get more and more of the kinds of things that you're looking at. So if you're a young woman who's looking at appearance-based content, photos that promote weight loss or exercise and show these kinds of perfected bodies, you're getting so much more of that on social media than you did back in the day looking at fashion and beauty magazines.
And I'm also curious, and I mean, all of this will require more study, as you said. It's the more study, the better, about the change, which is it's one thing to look at an image of, say, a model or someone, you know, displaying a fashion and compare yourself to their body in a magazine, but they're still sort of far away. They're somewhere else. Maybe they're a celebrity. This is sort of real people to real people. And I wonder how psychologically damaging or challenging that can be for a young person, because then you also aren't sure if you're looking at, you know, people in your own life. You're looking at their images maybe, and they also may be altered. So it becomes complicated pretty fast.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And in fact, we have done some research on that in our lab, that peers, people who are similar in age, similar in kind of stage of life, those people are actually the ones that if you compare your body to them, it seems to be more harmful to your own self-esteem than comparing yourself to a celebrity. People can kind of discount celebrities, you know, well, they have all the resources available to them or they're just genetically blessed and, you know, can become a supermodel. The average person can't. But when you're comparing yourself to people that you know, like acquaintances or people that you work with, people that you might go to school with, I think the comparison becomes much more intense and the effects could be more negative.
What should the takeaway be from this study, in your view, in terms of if young women are listening and thinking about cutting back on their social media use?
Yeah, well, I mean, personally, I think the less time we can spend on social media, the better. There doesn't really seem to be any evidence that it enhances our happiness or our psychological health. And this study and others like it seem to suggest that taking a break, even 1 week, a detox from it, could be helpful for certain individuals. Now, one limitation is we only did sign up people who are interested and motivated to get off of social media. So these results might not generalize to people who are perfectly happy with their social media and they have no urge to get off of it. But I would say check in with yourself. If you are considering taking a break from it, you know, go for it. It's easy to do for a week. You can give your friends the heads up that you won't be, you know, commenting or posting anything or liking theirs, and see how that feels. A lot of the participants in our study said, you know what, I really liked it, and I might just stay off of it.
Thank you for this. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Jennifer Milne, she's a psychology professor at York University, co-author of a paper studying young women and body image. A couple quick traffic things to mention. Highway 75 between St. Agatha and Morris is down to 1 lane, so you're going 80 there. Also, a little bit of fog reported around Highway 12 around Steinbach. 788-3093, and your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's a chilly start to the last day of April. It's 1 degree right now in downtown Winnipeg. We will see some sun today, though, a mix of sun and clouds, and still on the cool side, a high today of 12. A military veteran in Brandon wants a personalized license plate for his motorcycle. However, Manitoba Public Insurance won't allow it. Timothy Yakubowicz has requested a plate that reads D-Day. He says it would honor his late father, who fought on Juno Beach when it was invaded on June 6, 1944, D-Day. But MPI has denied Yakubowicz's request for the personalized place, not once, but twice.
I was informed that, we made a mistake on our first decision. We looked at your license plate and it was again denied because it suggests a political and or social movement.
MPI tells CBC it would not comment on individual customers' cases. Yakubowicz says he can't imagine how a D-Day license plate could offend anyone. He plans to try to apply for a third time. A parent who filed a human rights complaint against the Hanover School Division 7 years ago is worried to hear new concerns from parents about discrimination. At issue is a controversial policy which gives trustees the final say in hiring gym and music teachers. Some parents want the province to remove 6 trustees. They have a petition supporting the policy is a way of eliminating diversity. Michelle McHale understands their concerns.
We trust the people who are hiring to make good selections, to have our kids have good education. Why have these 2 positions been removed in this way? That parents are also articulating they believe it to be discriminatory.
Another parent group supports the trustees' plan, even though hiring decisions are normally left to the principal and superintendent. The education minister is going to meet with trustees this week. McHale says that is a good first step, but she says Hanover trustees need more oversights when issues arrive. Protesters at New York's Columbia University have taken over an administration building on that school's main campus. Students storming the building overnight, insisting they will not leave until Columbia meets their demands.
Your students will not move until you completely divest from Israeli apartheid!
The president of Columbia says the school has no intention of divesting from firms with ties to Israel. Video posted on social media shows protesters inside the building smashing windows, throwing furniture. Yesterday, Columbia announced it would be suspending students who refused to leave the protest rallies. It's the second week pro-Palestinian protests have taken over university campuses across the United States. Here at home, McGill University says it will work to de-escalate before asking for police to help with the encampment there. Dozens of tents are still pitched on the lawn of the school's downtown Montreal campus. Pro-Palestinian protesters have also set up an encampment at the University of British Columbia's Point Grey campus. Well, the whiteout is back in Winnipeg tonight. That means getting around downtown is going to be a little tricky today. Streets around Canada Life Centre start closing at 9 this morning. Among streets closing, southbound Donald between Portage and St. Mary Avenue, both directions of Graham between Hargrave and Smith, and transit buses are being rerouted in the area to make way for this street party. Starting at noon, sidewalks will also close on Donald, along with sidewalks on the north side of Graham. Now, the wives and girlfriends of Winnipeg Jets players may have the public beat when it comes to whiteout gear. They have been wearing custom puffer jackets made from white heritage Jets jerseys. Andrea Hellebuck is the wife of Jets goalie Connor Hellebuck. She says the inspiration came from Taylor Swift and Brittany Mahomes. The two wore jersey jackets of Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes during the NFL season.
This is not clearly going to be the first time that you see this happen, and probably hasn't even been the first time since they wore those jackets. I'm sure this will be a pretty common thing for a while.
The Jets jackets will be worn tonight as the game looks to keep their season alive in Game 5. They are trailing Colorado 3-1. A loss tonight would mean elimination. It is a later start. Again, puck drop at Canada Life Centre is 8:30 tonight. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Well, if the jackets are going to do it, then they better get ready to never take them off.
I tell you.
Even if the temperature soars to 24, if we get deeper in the playoffs, they better be wearing those down jackets.
Sweat it out.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into our regional forecast this morning with Abby Adiyemi.
Good morning once again. Cloudy skies and chilly 1 degree, but don't let that chill get you down as the day progresses. The sun, I can see the sun trying to make an appearance, and we will be expecting that mix of sun and clouds with temperatures climbing to a comfortable 12 degrees today. Now, keep an eye out for fog patches if you're on the highway and trying to leave the city or coming to the city. That's been reported, but that should be dissipating as the morning goes on. Heading west to Brandon now, it's currently 0 with clouds, but the sun will make an appearance later and we'll be seeing a high of 13. Up in Thompson, it's a touch warmer at 2 degrees with mostly cloudy skies and a chance of showers this afternoon. The high is 7. Meanwhile, in Churchill, it's a bit chilly at -3, where we'll see a mix of sun and clouds, and the high is around +4. Down in Dauphin, it's -2 and clear. Perfect for enjoying mainly sunny conditions later. We'll be seeing a high of around 15. In Gimli, temperatures are at -4 right now with partly cloudy skies. And the Interlake region can expect a mix of sun and clouds with a high near 9. In Steinbach, it's currently 2 degrees and clear. Today, we'll see a mix of sun and clouds, and any fog patches you're experiencing currently should be dissipating. We will be seeing a high of 12 degrees. And lastly, in Morris, it is 2 degrees with fog you're experiencing right now, but don't worry, it's going to be clearing up as the day progresses, and then we'll see a mix of sun and clouds with highs of around 12. Today's weather for Winnipeg: fog patches dissipating this morning, followed by a mix of sun and clouds, and a high reaching 12.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk.
Yeah, well, keep an eye out if you're planning to head down Highway 12. You may get some of those fog patches. Heard from Cautious Courier that he had about 300, 400 feet of visibility heading down Highway 12 this morning. They may dissipate as the morning goes on, as we heard from Abby. Also, Highway 75, southbound lanes between St. Agath and Morris are closed right now for road work. So that actually means it's one way. You can still go southbound on Highway 75, but it's one way both ways now. Everyone's kind of shifted over. It goes down to 80, so slow going on Highway 75. So keep an eye out if you are planning to head that way today. And finally, just look out for one big, mean, angry pothole southbound King Edward, just around McDermott, right outside of Red River College Polytech there in the curb lane. Got a call from Dave that he hit it yesterday, broke his tire essentially, and he saw a few other people while he was waiting to get towed also experience the wrath of that pothole. So look out for that. If you see something else going on out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Well, if you're a regular listener, then you know it's time to talk to Crystalie Ramlakan, who joins us via Zoom with business news. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Marcy.
So boycott to target Loblaw next month is gaining momentum online. In fact, we're going to talk to a Winnipegger a little later in the show who has chosen to be part of this. But what's the latest on the movement?
So some shoppers plan to boycott Loblaw-owned stores, which, they have a lot of different brands, including Superstore, No Frills, and Shoppers Drug Mart. So it's the latest sign of mounting frustration with major grocers, which have been under scrutiny for rising food prices and profits. The boycott emerged out of a Reddit group where people can share stories about their experiences grocery shopping and, of course, also complain about Loblaw. And the page now has about 60,000 members. Now, while there's no way of knowing how many people will participate in the boycott, the page is full of posts from people who say they plan to or have already started. Organizers say the primary aim here is to have a financial impact on Loblaw, which is the biggest grocer in the country, and to get the attention of the government. A list of demands include signing a grocery code of conduct and committing to affordable pricing. For more on the story, we spoke to Ken Wong, who is a professor of marketing at Queen's University.
As far as retail sales go, I don't think it's going to make any difference at all because, frankly, when you look at the 5 major chains, there isn't a whole lot to distinguish between their pricing. So you can boycott Loblaws all you want, but if in boycotting Loblaws, you're simply moving your expenditure from Loblaws to another grocer, but not changing the size of your expenditure because they're all responding to inflation, it's not going to have any impact.
But organizers hope the boycott will drive shoppers to smaller local independent stores. Loblaw says the company is paying attention to customers and sees them trying to mitigate inflation by seeking out sales and shopping at discount stores. And the grocer says it is responding to these shifting behaviors through new promotions and by expanding its discount footprint.
All right, thank you for this. It starts us off for the rest of the morning, where, as I mentioned, we'll find out why that local man's chosen to boycott. Let's stay with affordability this morning in your report. How are people feeling about buying a home in the near future now?
Well, the majority of Canadians aspiring to buy a new home say they will push their plans to next year or even later to wait for interest rates to drop. That's according to a new survey from Bank of Montreal. 72% of respondents say they will wait until borrowing costs fall, which is an increase of 4% compared to last year. Now, while interest rate cuts are expected in the second half of the year, economists say it's still a long way for rates to be low enough to restore affordability to recent norms. Here's Paul Sipe, who is with BMO.
It is not a spontaneous purchase in today's day and age, and folks are really looking through all of the homework and all of the puts and pulls on the situation. And of course, relying as well on the bank of mom and dad to help out when it comes to things like financial help in the terms of down payments.
But of course, not everyone is a customer of the Bank of Mom and Dad. Not everyone has that kind of help. And so, 85% of respondents, though, say they're making a real financial progress toward buying their first home, but face financial anxiety. Among the top concerns are unexpected expenses, climate considerations such as wildfires, and, of course, the high costs of ownership.
And just before markets this morning, vitamin and dietary supplement chain GNC has been struggling for years. What's the brand trying to do to turn things around?
Well, it's hoping the popularity of GLP-1 drugs such as Ozempic and Wegovy for weight loss will give it a boost. In an effort to try to draw customers in, it's adding a dedicated section in stores with vitamins, protein shakes, and supplements tailored to people managing these medications. It's also training employees on common side effects and products the company is stocking to address those kinds of issues. So they're not the only ones. A number of gyms, food manufacturers, and retailers are positioning their brands as businesses that can support people managing these issues. For example, food giant Nestle says it plans to invest more in nutritious products that it says provides benefits to people on GLP-1 medications and treatments such as protein shakes. Now, many obesity specialists say the drugs can be an effective treatment for what they say is a genetic medical condition. But doctors have also urged caution, warning they come with potential side effects like gastrointestinal problems. And they say the medications need to be taken long-term to remain effective and shouldn't be seen as a quick fix.
What are the markets telling us today?
In Europe, markets are lower as Eurozone inflation holds steady. Germany is down, the UK is up, France is down. In Asia, markets are largely on the rise, tracking Wall Street moves. Japan is up, Shanghai is down, Hong Kong is up. Oil is up 22 cents to $82.84 US per barrel. Gold is down $29.60 to $2,328 US per ounce. And the dollar is down 0.14 of a cent to 73.06 cents US.
Always nice to see you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Via Zoom with our business news, that's Crystalie Ramlakan. It's 6:44 a.m. right now on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app or on YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the show. Thanks so much for joining us. It's mostly cloudy. It's 1 degree, and our high today is 12. We will have a mix of sun and cloud, and it looks like it's pretty decent in the downtown right now with lots of blue sky coming through with some thin cloud right now. Well, next on the show, if you want to hear a conversation with Hayley Smalls, you can listen to her talk all about her new record called Timelines with Angeline Tedaweo on The Block on CBC. You can find that conversation at any point over at cbc.ca/music. But if you don't know Hayley Smalls' music, she's striking out on her own now with a new album. As mentioned, it's called Timelines, and on it she explores her newfound freedom, she says, by adding a wide variety of sounds from hip-hop, but also some Caribbean rhythms in there. Have a listen. This tune's called Frozen. Haley Smalls and Frozen. You can listen to Haley talk all about her new record, Timelines. As mentioned, that's with Angeline Tedaweo on The Block on CBC. And that conversation at any point with more music is at cbc.ca/music.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Mega laughs, mega shows recorded for CBC Jam, and at least 5 comedians per show. That's mega value for your money. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival is back April 30th to May 5th, and CBC is a proud sponsor. Catch Canadian performers Anne Pornell from The Great Canadian Baking Show, Lauren Ash from Superstore, and live tapings of The Debaters. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival, uplifting Canadian comedy. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
Now, if you're a regular listener, you know we've been asking you to send in some jokes, mom jokes we've been calling them. So 788-3205 or win at cbc.ca. And you are entered to win a chance to win some tickets to the Debaters, live taping, but also to get up on stage and share your joke. So today at noon is the deadline, and still getting some entries. Here's one that came in from Rebecca Bilski to win at cbc.ca. And Rebecca says, I asked my kid what he thought a mum joke was. So he told me my favorite joke. What's the difference between a sick horse and a dead bee? One is a seedy beast, the other is a bee deceased. Ba-dum-bum. Thank you very much for the jokes coming in, everyone. I appreciate it. Today at noon is the deadline. We will decide who the winners are, and then we will announce them. And that announcement coming up probably Thursday morning on the show. So keep listening to Information Radio. Right now it's 11 minutes to 7 o'clock on 89.3. It's 1 degree. It's mostly cloudy in Winnipeg. Well, following a week-long hiatus, the House of Commons is back. The stakes are high for the minority Liberals as they try to get approval for their budget. And they're trying to do it without approval, rather. We could see a snap election. To walk us through what to expect this week, Ryan Tumulty is here, parliamentary reporter with the National Post. Hi there, Ryan.
Hi there.
So what exactly is the House voting on this week with respect to the federal budget?
Yeah, so this isn't the full document. This isn't the full process. But the first step is called a Ways and Means motion. And all it means basically is that the House approves of the general budgetary policy of the government. That's the language that gets used. And basically it's the motion that avoids a snap election as long as it passes. We will get budget implementation legislation. That is more complicated. That has all the details of the various tax changes and things like that. That's the sort of thing that can get amended and tweaked as it works through the House of Commons. And that can take a long time. The fall economic statement, which we got back last year, still has not passed through both houses of Parliament. In fact, it isn't even out of the House of Commons yet. So this is just the first step in what is a long process in making everything that is in the budget real.
And then what happens? What unfolds as the Liberals continue to try to get the votes they need to get that general approval for the budget? And what do you expect the Conservatives are going to do with that this week?
Yeah, so, we're going to have a couple of hours of debate on this. The real process of getting the votes happens, outside of the chamber. But there are a couple of amendments. The Bloc had one last night that failed. The Conservatives have one as well. I don't suspect it will succeed because it basically calls for the Liberals to adopt the Conservative platform. So, that process will make its way through. The Conservatives are really pushing on the budget. They are really pushing the government to, scrap the carbon tax, to focus on home building in the way that their leader, Pierre Poilievre, has suggested. It's a very partisan, they're not really offering changes that I suspect the Liberals would adopt or that any government would adopt.
What else are you expecting to see from the Conservatives this week?
Yeah, I think what we've seen from the Conservatives is a big focus, so far at least, on BC and the changes around drug decriminalization that the provincial government is seeking there. So, the province asked Ottawa, they asked the federal Liberals for changes to federal law so that minor drug possession of, some pretty serious drugs like heroin and methamphetamine would not be punishable, as a crime. That change, that decriminalization went through, but now the BC government is having second thoughts. We're about a year into that proposal, and the BC government is having a lot of second thoughts and is looking to scale back that legislation. So, the BC government made that request Friday. The Conservatives, who have always opposed this legislation and this approach, were making a big issue of this in the House of Commons yesterday. I suspect that will continue throughout the week. It has really been their focus lately.
You mentioned the Bloc. What specifically were their demands and objections?
Yeah, so the Bloc has a very consistent objection to pretty much all federal legislation, which is that it should not encroach on provincial jurisdiction. So, you're talking about things in this budget like housing and dental care, as an example. Those are both technically in provincial jurisdiction. So the Bloc is pretty consistent that it says anytime something like that comes up, what Ottawa should do is send money to the provinces and get out of the way. It should not be, making demands. It should not be creating new programs, certainly. And it should not be telling the provinces, especially Quebec, obviously, what to do and how to do it.
How important is their vote to the Liberals?
It's not significant, really. Their big, the Liberals' dance partner really is the NDP in this Parliament. That said, the Bloc works with the government in a way that the Conservatives don't. The Conservatives sort of very rarely support government legislation, and they quite often do everything they can to delay it. So the Bloc is generally more open to working with the government. They have made suggestions to legislation in past. Some of that has been accepted. Some of it has not. But the Bloc don't always vote against the government in a way that the Conservatives do. But politically, and in terms of this budget, it's really about the Liberals and the NDP.
The quote of that stuck out for me on budget day, they had an MP who was the revenue critic for the Bloc, and they said, quote, "I wish them good luck with their lies," end quote. And then they walked away pretty much from the mic. So the Bloc always in there with commenting, but I don't think every Canadian always realizes, how that relationship works with the Liberals. We do, however, understand the NDP, as you mentioned, and how critical that relationship is for the Liberals. So Jagmeet Singh did talk about how they'll move forward yesterday. What did he share?
He didn't actually lay it out just yet. He said he's still talking to the government about questions he has around the budget. He flagged the disability benefit. We were expecting sort of a very clear, yes, I'll support the budget, no, I won't, sort of language from him yesterday. But he said he still has questions. And so he is still asking those questions of the government. He has potentially a day or two before this big vote on this Ways and Means motion comes. So, he still has time. I think in the end, they will end up supporting the budget just because so much is at stake there from their perspective, not just electorally, but, a lot of the policy that they have been demanding is contained in that budget. So I think they will take that next step forward, but we'll just have to wait and see.
All right, Ryan, thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Ryan Tumulty, parliamentary reporter with the National Post. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio. We're here with our team in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. In traffic this morning, you won't see it in Winnipeg right now necessarily, but there is some fog you could be contending with. And we have had some early morning calls about fog around Highway 12 around Steinbach. So please use the commuter line if you have any updates. Can also tell you Highway 75 between St. Agatha and Morris is down to one lane. So you're going to be going 80 kilometers per hour through that area. So just note that if it's part of your morning commute. If you see anything else we should update this morning, other than a good spring drive, walk or roll, 788-3093. And do not forget your sunglasses because it's not clouded over like it was yesterday. Before we get into the weather forecast and some more details, let's go to Heather Walls for news headlines.
Good morning. Well, a retired soldier in Brandon is fighting Manitoba Public Insurance to get a license plate honoring his late father. Timothy Yakubowicz wants a personalized plate for his motorcycle, which would read D-Day. He says that's the best way to honor his dad, a Second World War vet who fought on D-Day. He says it would also respect all veterans. MPI, though, has denied his request twice, saying the message could be linked to violence and is considered a political or social statement. The wives and girlfriends of Winnipeg Jets players are stepping up their whiteout gear. They have been wearing custom puffer jackets made from white heritage jerseys. We'll hear all about it coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
In the forecast, mostly cloudy today. Mostly cloudy in parts of Winnipeg this morning. Downtown, though, lots of sun. 1 degree is the current temperature. And for today, we're expecting a mix of sun and cloud and a high of 12 degrees. Fog patches should dissipate this morning. But as I mentioned, if you're seeing any early morning issues with your commute in fog, please call us at 788-3093. Well, in the next hour of the show, we're going to hear from that veteran that Heather mentioned that has concerns about the D-Day license plate he continues to try to fight to get on his motorcycle. Also, in the next hour of Information Radio, we're going to talk more about the big game tonight for the Jets. They're on the brink of elimination. We'll talk to a diehard hockey fan who's dedicated his entire basement to his love of the team. Stay tuned. It's all still ahead. Right now, though, it's 1 minute to 7 o'clock and World Report.
On the Current.
Police say their officers have struggled to manage public drug use in places like parks, beaches, and hospitals.
Last year, British Columbia decriminalized street drugs as part of a pilot project. Now, after a string of negative stories, the province is recriminalizing drugs in public spaces. We will look at the conflict and the evidence coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. The occupation has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho.
Protesters are now occupying an administration building at Columbia University. Dozens of people stormed Hamilton Hall overnight, breaking windows and tossing around furniture. The protesters are part of growing pro-Palestinian demonstrations being held at campuses across the U.S. But some school officials say Jewish students are feeling unsafe. Mahmoud Khalil is a negotiator with the Student Coalition at Columbia.
The liberation of Palestine and the Palestinians and the Jewish people are intertwined. Anti-Semitism and any other form of racism has no place on this campus and in this movement.
Some student groups are demanding their universities cut ties with Israeli institutions, and they say they are willing to keep the pressure on for as long as it takes. But officials at Columbia say they are risking their education. The school began suspending students who refused to leave the encampment. This morning, the school sent out an email asking students and staff to avoid going to campus. The International Court of Justice will rule today on a case Nicaragua brought against Germany. It wants the World Court to order Germany to stop sending weapons to Israel. It also wants funding restored to the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Freelance journalist Rebecca Collard reports from Berlin.
As Nicaragua laid out its case against Germany in the International Court of Justice earlier this month, protesters gathered outside holding Palestinian flags. Nicaragua's representative, Carlos Jose Ariglio Gomez, accused Germany of
failing to honor its own obligation to prevent genocide or to ensure respect of international humanitarian law.
Nicaragua says Germany is doing so by providing Israel with military, financial, and political support, and by cutting aid to the UN's Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Germany dismissed the case as unfounded, pointing to the large amount of aid it still provides to Palestinians and saying its military support to Israel is minimal. Marietta Auer is with the Max Planck Institute for Legal History and Legal Theory and thinks the case is political.
The main point of this claim is to fortify again the idea that there is a genocide going on in Gaza. The point is to isolate Israel on the international stage.
Weapon sales to Israel have become the focus of domestic legal cases and protests across Europe. And some Germans, like Annabelle Brantz, hope the case is successful in halting Germany's military exports.
I think that's one of our biggest shames.
If the court rules against Germany, it could have implications for how and to who countries export arms. Rebecca Collard for CBC News, Berlin.
Donald Trump's hush money trial resumes today in Manhattan. Private banker Gary Farrow is expected to continue his testimony. Farrow worked closely with Trump's former attorney Michael Cohen to set up a bank account and bank accounts. One was used to pay adult film star Stormy Daniels. Trump is facing 34 charges for allegedly trying to cover up those payments. Prosecutors say the money was meant to silence Daniels over an alleged affair with the former president. Trump has pleaded not guilty and has denied the affair. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is promising to get tough on crime. He says he will change bail rules and he will bring in stricter punishments for serious offenders. Poilievre made those promises in front of an audience of police officers in Ottawa yesterday. As Tom Perry reports, the speech is raising questions about how Poilievre would enact his plan.
Thank you very much to all of you in blue.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre speaking to the Canadian Police Association, offering his usual tough-on-crime message with a few flourishes.
Multiple murders will only ever come out of jail in a box.
Promising to keep anyone convicted of multiple murder in maximum security and force them to serve consecutive sentences.
And all of my proposals are constitutional, and we will make them constitutional using whatever tools the Constitution allows me to use to make them constitutional. I think you know exactly what I mean.
Poilievre didn't say which tools, but in the past, he has talked about using the notwithstanding clause.
There has not been a thought given to the long-term impact on Canada.
Errol Mendez teaches constitutional law at the University of Ottawa. He says going after the worst criminals may be good politics, but Mendez says no federal government has ever used the notwithstanding clause, which allows governments to temporarily override the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. He worries doing so would set a bad precedent.
Essentially, it's the straw that'll break the camel's back and lead to eventually the denigration of the Charter as a whole.
In his speech, Poilievre said as Prime Minister, he would be accountable to the people, that it would be up to them to decide whether his laws were constitutional. Tom Perry, CBC News, Ottawa.
Negotiators trying to hammer out a global treaty on plastic pollution are getting closer to a draft text. Talks wrapped up in the early hours this morning in Ottawa, and for the first time, the actual text of the treaty was discussed. The EU representative says she likes what she sees so far.
We support your proposal, Mr. Chair, which in our opinion presents a carefully crafted balance between work on technical matters and means of implementation. It may not be perfect, but we believe it is a good compromise.
But Rwanda, which helped kickstart this process, has criticism. Its delegate says there is too much focus on recycling and reusing plastic and not enough discussion of what to do about plastic manufacturing. A fifth round of talks will happen in South Korea later this year. Now that the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion is complete, it's time for the federal government to sell. And some First Nations along the line are interested buyers. Aaron Collins is bringing us 3 days of stories from the people who live along the pipeline. And this morning we hear from two Indigenous-led groups looking to buy TMX.
Come on, babe. Mike Lebordet strolls across his ranch on the Whispering Pines First Nation. The expanded Trans Mountain Pipeline also crosses this land. Now, Lebordet wants to own it, part of an Indigenous-led group partnering with a Calgary pipeline company to buy TMX.
We live with the risk. Let us have the benefit for the next 70 years and see how that works for us.
Robert Morin from the Enoch Cree Nation near Edmonton wants a piece of TMX too. Morin's group wants to buy Trans Mountain and divvy up the benefits among First Nations along the line. He hopes those communities could one day split as much as $500 million a year.
Every First Nation has managed poverty since the signing of treaties and since the establishment of this country. That has to change.
Morin says Indigenous ownership of TMX would be a form of economic reconciliation. The notion that First Nations could own a pipeline, a new one, according to Toronto Metropolitan University historian Sean Courage.
It will likely have effects on the shape of those projects, the distribution of the economic benefits from those projects, and whatever future development we might see.
The federal government does plan to sell TMX and has signaled that they would like First Nations involved. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
A major change is coming to the federal government's hybrid work model. Later this year, public servants will have to get back to the office 3 days a week. Two major unions say they've been blindsided by the decision, but as Stu Mills reports, it is something politicians have been wanting for a while.
Well, 3 days is a good start.
Premier Doug Ford repeating the call he made a month ago while hinting he won't be happy until workers are behind their desks Monday to Friday.
How many days a week do we work? 7 days? 24/7?
A federal government source not authorized to speak about the matter confirmed with Radio-Canada the change could come into effect in September. Details that were first reported in the French-language newspaper Le Droit. Minister of Public Services and Procurement Jean-Yves Duclos said individual ministries would have a say in where employees work.
All departments need to contribute to the conversations that are taking place.
Well, it absolutely catches us by surprise.
Stephanie Montreuil is the head of public affairs at the Professional Institute of the Public Service, one of the largest labour unions in Canada. She wouldn't speculate about how members of her union might react, but in downtown Ottawa, Tanis LaBelle offered a glimpse of what the change would mean for her.
By coming in, like, it adds to my workday. It takes away from my family life.
With a major reduction in the number of offices owned by Ottawa on the horizon and no formal announcement about the new hybrid policy, public servants are left with questions not only about where they'll work, but how and when. Stu Mills, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. Mix of sun and cloud downtown. It's 1 degree, and you're with Information Radio on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and this hour on the show.
I see nothing that is derogatory or offensive to anybody in the public. Like, I know the Rural Mint, they publish articles and merchandise related to the Great Wars, as well as D-Day. It's printed on currency. I don't know if they feel D-Day is offensive. What's next? Do we cancel Remembrance Day?
That's a Manitoba veteran who's trying to understand why MPI denied his request to put D-Day on his license plate, citing it as a political or social movement. Stay tuned. We'll hear the full story coming up. Also, it is do or die for the Winnipeg Jets. And this hour on the show, we're going to take you to a basement where a big fan has his house all ready to roll. Right now, though, let's go to other stories in the news this morning with Heather Wells.
A parent who filed a human rights complaint against the Hanover School Division 7 years ago is troubled by new concerns about discrimination. A controversial policy will give trustees final say in the hiring of gym and music teachers. Michelle McHale says principals and superintendents should be the ones hiring teachers, not trustees. We're going to hear more on this story. As well, downtown Winnipeg is going to get white again tonight. The Whiteout Street Party as the Jets play at Canada Life Centre at 8:30 tonight. And even though that's happening this evening, they're getting ready already this morning at 9 o'clock. streets in the area are going to start shutting down. Southbound Donald between Portage and St. Mary Ave. Graham between Hargrave and Smith. Transit buses also will be rerouted in that area starting at 9 this morning. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into the forecast here. Abby Adeyemi, we are starting with some sunshine downtown at least.
Yeah, I see the sunshine hanging overhead. We are still at 1 degree in Winnipeg. Today brings a mixed condition. You know, those fog patches we talked about earlier, I can see that they're dissipating, and now they will be gone before the midpoint of the day, giving way to this delightful mix of sun and clouds that we're seeing. Now, the winds is something we also need to talk about because it's going to be shifting from the east this afternoon, adding a little breeze to our day. And we're looking at a high of 12 degrees. For tonight, folks will see some clouds come in. That's because of the showers that we're expecting overnight as debuted, and the wind will ease up, bringing, some overnight showers. Brandon is currently at 0, Thompson 1, Churchill -2, Dauphin -1, Gimli -1, Steinbach -2, and Morris 3.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk, you've got some details on the commute this morning.
Yes. Actually heard about fog. Let's start on the highways here. Heard that Highway 12, a bit of fog patches as well. Around the Springfield area as well. Heard that there's some fog there. Thanks for those calls. We also got this call about a real mean old pothole.
Hi there, my name is David Knock. I am on Route 90, and I've been here for about 3.5, 4 hours waiting for a CAA tow truck to come and pick me up. I hit a crater on southbound King Edward Street right in front of Red River Community College. Anyway, it's basically not only flattened my wheel, but basically taken the wheel right off the axle. 5 minutes after I was here, or after that happened, a young woman ended up flattening her tire as well in the same crater. The crater is about 4 feet long, 3 foot 2 inches wide, and about 6 to 7 inches deep. And the front edge, which is where your tire is going to hit, is like hitting a curb, a square curb. But if you can let people know that there's a pretty dangerous one just north of McDermott on King Edward southbound. It is not a friendly crater.
Look at Abby's face right now.
I'm just thinking, oh no, not a way to start summer, replacing the tire, and I hope the rim is not cracked.
It sounds terrible. So that came in yesterday after the show?
That's right. Came in yesterday after the show, and I actually cut it down a little bit. He also mentioned 2 other people he saw while he was waiting there also destroy their tires. So it's a pretty bad one. Actually, just got a call from Tim because I was talking about this earlier. Now there's pylons around there, and Tim says as you can drive by, if you look close enough, you can actually see the underworld, which is kind of cool. Kind of neat. So I don't get to see that every day. So thanks for that. That's in the curb lane, of course, southbound King Edward, McDermott, right outside of Red River College Polytech.
Vampires flying out.
Yeah, really. It's this public safety hazard in a bunch of different ways. So if you see anything else going on out there, you want to give me an update, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, it is do or die night for the Winnipeg Jets tonight, playing at home, so that means we're going to have another whiteout. Jets fans are known across the country for wearing our famous white attire during the playoffs and the whiteout street parties. But as you've been hearing in the news this morning, and you may have seen images of this online, and please have a look, the wives and girlfriends of the Winnipeg Jets want to do something extra special, the partners of the Jets. You may have seen photos of what they're wearing. They've been making a fashion statement by wearing white puffer jackets inspired by the heritage jerseys. Think Taylor Swift inspired. They're getting a lot of attention on social media. This is Connor Hellebuck's wife, Andrea, talking about how they came up with the idea.
I'm excited to show it. So, I don't know if you're familiar, or most people are, when Taylor Swift and Brittany Mahomes went to a Chiefs game and they had the football jersey made into a puffer jacket. So the whole world, I think, went crazy over those. And we just saw them, like the group of girls on the Jets, and we're thinking, how cool would that be if we could do that for our playoffs? So it is a hockey jersey made into a cropped little puffer jacket. It's very warm because it's Winnipeg. It's by Anika Rodricks. These are real, authentic Jets, the white heritage jerseys, which apparently are now discontinued. So almost makes it even a little cooler, because they're really hard to get. When we started talking about doing this idea with Anika and then me and a few of the other girls, we just love the heritage jerseys. We wanted these, and then one of my fellow girlfriends that's dating Adam Lowry found out that they're all discontinued. So we were a little upset about that, but I don't know who worked their magic, honestly. I didn't have anything to do with sourcing the jerseys, but they ended up being able to find enough for our jackets here in Winnipeg, and then added the name bars and, customized them to each of the current players. And yeah, so it ended up working out. Yeah, I love these jackets. I would say they're probably our favorite that we've had so far.
That was Connor Hellebuck's wife, Andrea, talking about how their custom jackets came to be. The jackets they'll be rocking for tonight's Game 5. So she also mentioned their Anika. So that is the designer of these famed jackets. CBC's Brittany Greenslade had a chance to speak to the Michigan-based designer. Anika Rodericks is her name. And she said she was pleasantly shocked when she got the call from Winnipeg.
Obviously, we all know the iconic Taylor Swift jacket that Kristen Juszczyk made. And I remember when I first saw it on social media, I was like, this is amazing. I had to recreate that. So I went to school for fashion design. So I was like, I know I can make this jacket. And I started off with a vest because it was NFL playoff season. And from there, I made the Red Wings one, and it just went from there.
So take me back to this message that you get in March.
It was a random message, honestly. So I got a message, a DM from Andrea, and I didn't know who she was. I wasn't following her or had any knowledge of that her husband plays for the Jets or anything like that. And she just messaged me and she was like, I love your Detroit Red Wings puffer. And my husband plays for the NHL. And she was like, I would love to order one. And I was like, what? I was like, this is insane. What are you talking about? I was like, I'm just a regular person. And I can't believe this is happening. Obviously, I messaged her back, and it just went from there. She initially wanted to buy a puffer for herself. So she was just asking me about the details. And then within a few back and forth conversations, she was like, actually, she's like, would you be interested or even able to do playoff jackets for all the girls? And I read that message and my heart just dropped. I was like, am I reading this right? Is this for real? And I didn't even think twice. I didn't know how I was going to do it, how it was going to work, the logistics, but I was just like, yes, I can do it. And it just went from there. So it starts with obviously the jersey. Every jersey is different. So I think that's the fun part about it. When I start a jersey, I have to obviously deconstruct it. So cut off the sleeves, cut off the patches. I seam rip every little thing. And then I have custom made patterns that I've made, and I cut the patterns out of the jerseys and then kind of rework them and add in the layering and the stuffing and patch it back all together. So she sends me the jerseys. Yeah, we kind of went back and forth on sizing and things like that, because specific sizes for the jackets, I need a specific size jersey to accommodate the fabric. And I asked her what jersey they wanted to use, and she said it was the heritage jersey for the Jets, but it's discontinued from what I know. So they were actually able to have it custom made just for the order. And the manufacturer who makes the jerseys, they were very helpful, because from what Andrea told me, they were working around the clock to kind of get it done and put all the names and the numbers on it, so that way it can be shipped to me. Because I told her, I was like, it's such a quick turnaround. I don't know if I'm going to be able to accommodate 21 jackets.
So they were custom made just so you could deconstruct them.
Yeah, literally.
So when did you get them, and when were you able to turn this all around by?
So I want to say I got the jerseys March 6th or 7th, literally started working on them the same day, opened them up, started cutting them up. I made content of the original jerseys just because I do a lot of TikTok before and afters. I was anticipating finishing it by end of March. This was wishful thinking. I was like, yeah, I'll be done. No, I did not finish until April 15th. And I was panicking because I was like, oh my gosh, playoffs are about to start. And I remember telling Andrea, because she was I was telling her I would just ship them back to a away game in the US. And I was like, there's no way I can do that. I was like, if I have to drive them to Winnipeg, I'll drive them there, but I will get it to you before the game.
What was her reaction when she first saw them?
She was capital letters. She's unreal, heart eyes. She was this is amazing. And I was so happy to hear that, because obviously, as a fashion designer, when you're creating something, you might love something and you might be passionate about how it turned out, but when your client loves it too, like that's the best feeling. It's unreal. Like I'm so grateful for like all of the support. Like the Hockey Nation has been so supportive, and like the kindest words and the compliments and like the comments and the messages, and just saying like, it's just so reassuring of like what I'm doing and like that it's good, which is like helpful to know.
Can we count you as a Jets fan now?
Yeah, I'm absolutely rooting for the Jets. I hope they like win the Stanley Cup and like get everything that they deserve.
So those jackets are really getting a lot of attention on Instagram if you want to check out the photos there. That was CBC's Brittany Greenslade speaking to the designer from Michigan. Her name's Anika Roderick. She designed these puffer jackets, as you heard, made out of the Heritage Jets jerseys for the partners, wives, and girlfriends of the players. Game night is tonight in Winnipeg, Game 5. Do or die for the Jets. Puck drops at 8:30. Bit of music next, maybe to spur them on to a win. We're going to ease into our hope. This is reggae fusion band Magic, back with a new album. This is Good Feeling About You.
Most scars feel like they are healing when I am in your atmosphere. All my senses, I can feel it. Suddenly everything's so clear. Where there was shadow, now there's light. All that was wrong is turned to right. You are so beautiful inside. And I got a good feeling about you. A good feeling. That I will be miserable without you. A good feeling. A good feeling. I want to build my world around you. And I mean it. I got a good feeling about you. A good feeling. I said really, really, really good. My consciousness, it is dreaming in places that I've never seen. I've lived a life full of treason compared to what you're showing me. Where there was shadow, now there's light. Where it felt wrong, it all feels right. You are beautiful inside. And I got a good feeling about you. A good feeling. That I will be miserable without you. A good feeling. A good feeling. I want to build my world around you. And I got a good feeling about you. A good feeling. I said really, really, really good. Where there was shadow, now there's light. Where it was wrong, it all feels right. You are so beautiful inside. And I got a good feeling about you. A good feeling. A good feeling. That I will be miserable without you. So good feeling. So good feeling. I want to build my world around you. And I got a good feeling about you. A good feeling. I got a good feeling about you. A good feeling. That I will be miserable without you. A good feeling. I want to build my world around you. And I got a good feeling about you. A good feeling. I said really, really, really good.
You feeling the vibes, Scott Regehr?
Oh, yeah.
We're trying to bring the vibes for tonight. So we didn't want to play like the rock jock, we got this anthem, because, you know, we're in tough, the Jets are. But, it's, you know, we can have a good feeling. They have beat this team at home 4 in a row. They've gone on big runs. They've come back. They just need to find it. But, man, Colorado's been playing pretty. So what's your sense on the Jets trying to keep their season alive tonight?
My sense is they have the ingredients to do it. You know, this is a bit of a pick your own cliche night for the Jets. You know, back it's against the wall, do or die, win or go home, all those. But if you listen to Adam Lowry, the captain of the team, the heartbeat of this club, the other cliche, one game at a time, applies.
The mindset going into Game 5 is we know we need to win this one. We need to make some adjustments, and you can't look too far ahead, or you can't look at the task as so daunting that, you know, it almost seems impossible to take care of business and then look to steal one in Colorado. So that's, what we're going to do. We're going to, come to the rink, have a good morning skate, and just focus on that.
So there you are. That's the feeling from the captain. Connor Hellebuck's the key. There's no question about that, Marcy. We learned yesterday that he was a candidate for the Vezina Trophy. We thought that would be the case. He'll probably win it, but I'm sure Connor would hand over that hardware in an absolute Manhattan minute if he was to get a win, not just in this game, but in this series against Colorado instead. Also be interesting to see if we see reinforcements for the Jets tonight. Cole Perfetti hasn't played yet in this series and obviously had a pretty great season when he was given the opportunity. And depending on what happens with Vlad Nemesnikov, who of course suffered a fractured jaw as a result of that errant shot he took in the last game, it's very unlikely Nemesnikov would suit up tonight anyhow. So there's a roster availability for Cole Perfetti. Win this game, though. Get the fans excited again, and Hellebuck getting back on his game, then it really is one game at a time. They're capable. This is not like they have, not the Toronto Maple Leafs with a half century of baggage hanging over them.
Stay out of the box, shoot the puck, shoot the puck, shoot the puck, please.
Wayne Gretzky, you know what he said about that. So we'll see.
In unison, you're right, we will. All right, over to basketball. Canadians are thriving in the NBA playoffs.
Yeah, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he led Oklahoma City to a first-round sweep of New Orleans last night, Marcy. The Hamilton native and MVP candidate had 24 points. Meantime, in Hollywood...
Murray to try to break the tie. No timeout by the Lakers. They got to go. James, a bump, a feed, a punch shot. No! The Nuggets advance!
LeBron James and the Lakers are out, and it was Kitchener's Jamal Murray doing the ousting. In that flurry you just heard, Murray dribbled into traffic, and with every Laker on the floor, all 5 of them, surrounding Murray, he still hit the winning jump shot with 3 seconds left to play. Broadcasters claimed he had ice water in his veins. His coach, Michael Malone, did not disagree.
To add to his playoff lore by having 2 game winners is just incredible. The conversation before the game, without getting into too much detail, was an emotional one. And as he just told me, he goes, I'm glad I played because I don't know if we win if I don't play tonight. I said, well, that's the understatement of the year. The kid's a warrior, man. I can't say enough good things about Jamal Murray.
Difficult to fathom, Marcy, that Murray played this game injured. He warmed up with his strained calf, heavily wrapped, and yet when it mattered most, Murray was ready to go, something he's been despite hamstring, knee, ankle, and shin ailments in the past. Wow. If Murray continues to push himself like this, though, it's hard not to wonder whether he's going to be available for Canada come the Olympics, where we'd all love to see him eliminate LeBron one more time, this time with the American Dream Team.
And just really briefly, what are you watching with the CFL draft that also goes tonight?
Well, because the Bombers, with the likes of Brady Oliveira, Nick Dembski, and others, have this wealth of Canadian talent, they fielded more Canadians last year than any team, and that won them an extra pick at number 20 tonight for the draft as a reward the league now gives out. So they're aging out a little bit, especially on the offensive line, so I expect Winnipeg will focus there, but they're pretty good in all positions.
We'll see. Thank you.
Yep.
Scott Reguer, Morning Sports. Stacey called the commuter line. She says there's a stalled van in the curb lane northbound Route 90 just before the St. James Bridge. Keep left to pass. 788-3093 and your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, the sun is shining, but it is chilly out there as we begin the last day of April. We'll stay cool with a mix of sun and clouds and a high of 12. A retired soldier in Brandon is fighting Manitoba Public Insurance to get a license plate honoring his late father. Timothy Yakubowicz wants a personalized plate for his motorcycle. He wants it to read D-Day. He says it is the best way to honor his father, a Second World War vet who fought on Juno Beach on D-Day. Yakubowicz says a D-Day license plate would also serve another purpose.
But it's to show the respect of the veterans that served, past, present, and future. And me as a soldier, I've lost a lot of friends over time.
Yakubowicz first applied for the personalized plate last August, MPI has denied his request twice, saying the message could be linked to violence and is considered a, quote, political or social statement. The public insurer declined to comment on Jakubowicz's case. Jakubowicz says he plans to try again. You can hear more on this story coming up in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. A parent who filed a human rights complaint against the Hanover School Division 7 years ago is troubled by new concerns about discrimination. A controversial policy would give trustees final say in the hiring of gym and music teachers. Some parents want the province to remove 6 trustees. Michelle McHale says principals and superintendents should be the ones who are doing the hiring. She says history shows Hanover trustees need oversight.
Training isn't enough in those situations. And if we have a board that's putting forth proposals that by design are discriminatory and exclusionary, who helps the board with those decisions when they have blind spots or gaps that maybe they don't understand?
Another parent group supports the school board's new policy. The education minister is going to meet with trustees this week. The latest round of talks on a global plastic pollution treaty have come to an end in Ottawa. And while the delegates on hand failed to agree to a draft text, the EU representative believes there is reason for optimism.
We support your proposal, Mr. Chair, which in our opinion presents a carefully crafted balance between work on technical matters and means of implementation. It may not be perfect, but we believe it is a good compromise.
However, the Rwandan delegation, which helped kickstart this process, has some concerns. It believes there's too much focus on expanding recycling and not enough on limiting manufacturing of plastics. A 5th round of talks are scheduled for later this year in South Korea. King Charles has resumed his public duties. The King visiting a cancer treatment charity this morning. Charles had his own cancer diagnosis earlier this year, and this is his first formal public appearance in 3 months. Buckingham Palace says more are planned for the coming weeks, with the King scheduled to host a state dinner for the Emperor of Japan in June. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Are you ready for another whiteout street party? To help you get ready, here's some information you may need. As Downtown Street starts shutting down at 9 this morning, southbound Donald between Portage and St. Mary Avenue will close. Both directions of Graham between Hargrave and Smith, and transit buses are also being rerouted in the area. Starting at noon today, sidewalks will close on Donald and along the north side of Graham. Now, the wives and girlfriends of Winnipeg Jets players may have the public beat when it comes to their whiteout gear. They have been wearing custom puffer jackets made from white heritage jerseys. Michigan-based clothing designer Anika Rodricks started working on these jerseys in early March and finished them just in time for the playoffs. She says what started out as a request for one jacket quickly turned into an entire roster.
I was like, am I reading this right? Is this for real? And I didn't even think twice. I didn't know how I was going to do it, how I was going to work the logistics, but I was just like, yes, I can do it. And it just went from there.
Roderick says it takes almost a full day to make one jacket. She hopes they'll be worn all the way to the Stanley Cup final. But first, the Jets have to win tonight. It is elimination night as Winnipeg trails Colorado 3-1. A puck drop is 8:30. And you can see what these heritage jackets look like. All you have to do is go to our website this morning, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
They're cool, eh?
They're beautiful. I love them.
Yeah, I think that if they could get those made for fans, people would snap them up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into our regional forecast now. Here's Abby.
Good morning once again. Winnipeg and the regions are actually starting off cloudy skies and a cool 1 degree right now. However, sunshine is on the menu right now if you look towards your eyes, and we're heading to a high of 12 with a mix of sun and clouds later. Now, the morning fog patches we made mention of is clearing up, and tonight in Winnipeg we should be seeing some more clouds as the showers come our way. Still talking about fog, now Brandon is seeing freezing fog. Freezing fog in Brandon at 0, and that will be clearing up later, making folks in Brandon get to a high of 13. Thompson is warmer at 1 degree, mostly cloudy. A chance of showers for folks in the north. You'd see a high of 7. Churchill is chilly at -2. Mix of sun and clouds at the moment. A high of 4 degrees. Dauphin is at -1 and clear. Sunny skies you're seeing. Highs is near 15 degrees. Gimli is at -1 with partly cloudy skies. The highs would see around 9 degrees. And -2 in Steinbach and clear. Sunny skies you're seeing right now. You're heading for a high of 12. Morris is at 3 degrees with the fog patches clearing up, giving way for a mix of sun and clouds, and will get to a high of 12. For Winnipeg, the fog patches are dissipating, and we are in for a mix of sun and clouds, and the highs for today is 12.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey, you've got a couple things on the commute to mention.
Yeah, I got a call from Stacy. There's a stalled van on the curb lane, northbound Route 90, just before the St. James Bridge. Keep left to get around that. Maybe starting to cause some backups for folks. Looks like when she called me about 10 minutes or so ago, it had just happened. So keep an eye out for that. Also, I've been talking all morning about that big, mean pothole on southbound King Edward, just before McDermott, outside of the Red River College RRC at Polytech, in the curb lane. There is now pylons around that, so keep left to get around that. You kind of lose your lane there for a hot minute because that thing is deep. So look out for that. One final thing here, Highway 75 southbound from Morris to St. Agatha. Just a reminder for folks, if you are heading down that highway, the entire southbound lanes between Morris and St. Agatha are closed for construction, but you can still go south and north. It's just one lane both ways, and it's 80 kilometers per hour, so much slower commute if you are heading down Highway 75 this morning. If you see anything else going on out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let folks know what you're seeing. That number, 204-788-3093.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know how we got here to the last day of April, but here we are. And tonight is the Jets' last chance to push through and forward into the playoffs and continue. So the Jets battling for their lives, as we've been talking about all morning, heading into Game 5 against the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche are up 3-1, and it is no doubt going to be an intense game. At least I hope it is, because if you got to go out, if they don't make it tonight, let's at least see a game. So where are you going to watch from? If you're a Jets fan, are you heading into the Whiteout Street Party tonight? Or are you going to be watching at home? Well, one Jets fan has quite a spot. He's created his own viewing den in his basement, and it includes this. Have a listen.
Welcome to my bathroom. Got a painting that I think everybody will remember and love. Picture of Dustin Byfuglien pulling 2 Vegas Golden Knights players out of a pile up in front of the net. Something that I don't think anybody that's ever seen it will forget anytime soon. Something that I specifically put here for the reason of being right above the toilet, so everybody's going to see it when they come in. And this hockey card wall. I went through all of my personal hockey card collection from when I was a young boy, and there are some absolute legends on this wall, so it keeps people busy and maybe in here longer than they should be.
Even in the bathroom. That's Winnipeg Jets superfan Tyler Swore describing a part of his basement in Crescentwood. The walls are all filled with framed pictures of Jets players. Some are autographed even by Jets players. There's tons of banners, multiple big screens for viewing games from all angles. And there's every kind of memorabilia, from bobbleheads to, well, let's have a listen. CBC's Jim Agapito had a chance to chat with Tyler Swore about his basement, or as he calls it, the Swar Bar.
This is a place most like to call the Swar Bar.
The Swar Bar?
Last name Swar. It's the bar I've always dreamed of. It's a dream bar for any Jets fans.
What is your relationship with the Jets?
It's a lifelong love-hate relationship, that's for sure. It's one that I was birthed into, so I've kind of embraced it as an adult now, but as a kid it was definitely something that was just kind of always there. Learned to love it and learned to live with them.
How long did this take to make?
Couldn't put a timestamp on it because it's kind of taken on a life of its own, and it's still going. It's more of a Jets museum, let's say. I inherited a lot of stuff from family friends, family members. Once I started putting stuff on the walls, anybody that came by would end up coming by again and bringing some kind of token to leave behind. So a lot of what you see on the walls and what we're going to look at is stuff that I've acquired from the last, call it 30 years of my life, and previous to that, decades of other people's lives.
So just looking at your hall here, I mean, everything from the details of the sides here, I mean, you look at this.
It's what they say is official. I've got an inside source that got me the file for the center line of the rink, so figured why not add it.
And I'm looking over here. You have a whole bunch of jerseys. Tell me about that.
Yeah, tons. There's a lot of Jets. Some of my favorites in the collection are a jersey that belonged to my dad years ago when the Jets were obviously functioning in the 90s. Number 2 in this would be organizationally. This is from my childhood. The 90s Moose logo with the one and only Scott Arneal on the back. So current assistant coach of the Winnipeg Jets. This is another piece that kind of makes it feel like it's come full circle, you know?
And he did something special for you.
Yeah, personalized little autograph there. To Tyler, Scott Arneal.
And what's it like now that it's playoffs? Like, be able to be here and watch that?
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Tickets can get a little pricey for a lot of people, so a lot of my friends end up going to a game or two here or there, but this is somewhere that's usually open every night of the hockey calendar.
So you must be the most popular person amongst your friends, especially during playoff time.
The calls come in, people show up unannounced on occasion, but the door's open. If you know, you know.
I'm Lindley Swar, and I live at the Swar Bar.
Your husband's obsession with the Jets. How are you okay with this?
You know, it's good. I love the entertainment that it brings and all the snacks that I get to make with it.
Now, how much input did you have on the decor in this place?
I would be considered the Kijiji queen. So a lot of the side tables, the lighting, other little things. Had a good time finding those. It's fun. It's nice. It's really close to home, so I get to just leave when I want to and sneak away Houdini. It's good. It's fun. I like it.
These bar stools, tell me about that.
Yeah, so these chairs were the first wedding anniversary gift from my wife, Lindley. These are a testament to her commitment to everything you see here. Nice talking point to have while people sit and wait, right? This is my puck collection. It kind of started out of nowhere. When I moved back to Winnipeg, I would go sit and watch them practice at the Iceplex. So once I accumulated a couple practice pucks, I started buying pucks at games that I went to that I wanted to remember. So I've got playoff pucks, game-used pucks from other arenas, Heritage Classic pucks, all the cancer care pucks from the Jets. Cancer care is something that I like to support when I can. Buying these pucks is kind of my little donation and gets me a little talking point for when people come by here as well.
So Tyler, I'm looking here at your banners that you have on the wall going in your basement. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so much like the puck collection, I think the collection itself started before I even started collecting, and I inherited a few of them over the years, and then they just started amassing in a pile, and I needed somewhere to put them. So here we've got them coming down into the Swar Bar. And
can you tell me about one of them, one that's special to you?
This one would be the one, the Jets Cherished Memories banner. It's one that's just kind of been around in my life. I was only 8 years old when the Jets left, and this kind of makes me think about the years past of the Jets.
How do we go and beat the Colorado Avalanche?
Yeah, good question. Adhering to the system. Everybody's got to be tugging on the rope the same way, and if there's ever opposing forces, it doesn't really help out to winning the Stanley Cup. I watch a lot of hockey. Aside from the Jets, I probably watch about 350 to 400 games a year of other teams, and watching them over the last decade now, I can say that this is the best Jets team we've seen in Winnipeg, and they have all the pieces to succeed. So as long as they all kind of jump on board and pull the same rope in the same direction like I mentioned before, I think they could have some success.
See this chair here, tell me about that.
Yeah, so when the old arena was getting demolished, obviously my dad needed to get a hold of a piece of the history that was from that building, and aside from the couple bricks that he took, he also managed to grab this chair that we've outfitted with a nice platform base, and now it's referred to as the captain's chair.
Do you sit in a captain's chair?
So I do sit in the captain's chair from time to time, and I only call it the captain's chair because of the list of legendary captains that I have sitting above it now.
Ah, I see. Huh? So it must be, do you feel anything when you sit in that chair?
Yeah, it's special. You almost smell the old stale cigarettes and popcorn of the old arena, Coming here, it's really a spot not only myself, but others can let loose a little more and really let things fly.
Really cool. If you're watching on YouTube this morning, then you saw even the light up above is this mini score clock. People watching on YouTube commenting, go Jets go. Tonight's game will be close and head to overtime, some people are saying. Personally, if the Jets are going to get it done tonight, I don't want to see it in overtime. Maybe just too stressful. Puck drop is 8:30 for Game 5, and you were listening there to Jim Agapito speaking to Winnipeg Jets superfan Tyler Swore. Also spoke to Lindley Swore there in their basement, their Jets den. So where are you watching the game? Let us know if you've got the Swore bar equivalent of their basement. Love to hear about it. 788-3205, and as mentioned, you can check out that video on YouTube or on our website.
I'm Janet Stewart. Tuesday on our call-in conversation, we're talking sleep, and our guest knows a lot about the subject. He's the former director of the Sleep Lab. What helps you fall asleep? Do you have questions you'd like the doctor to answer? Call in live when we open our phone lines Tuesday at 12:30, or leave a message now, 204-788-3797.
Last day of April, and what have we got? Well, a little bit chilly, actually, 1 degree, mostly cloudy. And for the rest of the day, though, it'll be a pretty decent spring day. Mix of sun and cloud. You can see some sunshine downtown already, and a high of 12 degrees. Well, as you may have been hearing in the news this morning, a Brandon man says he's upset. And he wants to know why he was denied a personalized license plate from MPI. Tim Yakubowicz is a retired veteran who served in the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. His late father was also a veteran and served at D-Day, where he was severely injured. Tim recently purchased a motorcycle. He wanted to get a plate that said D-Day, but he was denied. He says MPI denied his request for the plate, saying it did not meet their guidelines. I connected with Tim via Zoom yesterday and noticed that he was in a poignant location.
Top of the morning.
Hi, how are you?
Good, Marcia. It's wonderful to hear your voice.
Yeah, thank you very much for being with us. So I'm really mindful of where you are today.
Oh, yes. I'm in a cemetery outside of Brandon, a very small town. And I like coming here just to pay my respects and just wonder what these people went through. From Private David S. Clark to Ernest Ronaldo, Elizabeth Burrell, who was in the nursing corps in World War I and is also a Silver Cross mother. Just going for a walk, and I came across a handful of veterans that are interned in this location, which I find amazing for such a small community who gave such a sacrifice.
You obviously are a retired veteran yourself, serving in the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. Your father was a veteran and served at D-Day, where he was severely injured. And I know that you recently purchased a motorcycle and wanted to get a plate that said D-Day, which is the reason we're on Zoom today. Tell me a little bit more about that desire, why you wanted to have that publicly displayed, why you wanted to get that plate.
It's like to honor all veterans, as well as my father, who's taught me so much in life. It's to respect the veterans, both past, current, and future. It's just to preserve the legacy of Canada and to show the people that D-Day is never forgotten.
So when you first came up with thinking, I'm going to get this plate on my new bike, and what was the first step?
You actually you go to your insurance agent, and they'll give you a request form, and you're allowed 3 choices, and they also stipulate within their guidelines of what is considered to be a proper plate to ensure that you're not offending anybody, which really makes sense. So going through what I was wanting for a plate, I just happened to look at a picture of my father and I go, I think D-Day would be very appropriate.
So you approached MPI to get a plate that said D-Day. Did you leave the request with them before and wait a while before, I'm trying to get the timeline down, before you heard back from them?
I applied last summer, and we know that MPI was going through their deliberations, striking, and I was also told that the table that decides on the plates, they only sit
periodically.
They finally responded with a letter that D-Day was declined because it directs to violence and or criminal activity. That was their first letter of rejection.
If I stop you there for a moment, then what was your response to that?
Well, in my mind, I'm going. are you serious? Like, how does that relate to, because that's one of their guidelines. And I couldn't fathom it. I couldn't accept it at all. I just thought it was ridiculous.
Did you write back or express that to them?
Well, the 800 number and all that to get through to them is actually quite taxing on time. So my insurance agent went out of their way to contact and to explain, to reconsider. And once again, it took even more time, so I approached my MLA.
And what happened next? Because I know that you've sent CBC a series of letters of response that I've seen.
Well, I got a phone call from the manager of the personalized plates, and they said, "Oh, we made a mistake. There's another letter coming." And this time, they said it was a political and or social movement.
To ask for a D-Day plate. And what was your response to that?
Oh, I just could not accept it. And I said, I'm taking this further, and I contacted CBC.
What was the response from your MLA when you brought up your concerns that this was happening?
Oh, very proactive. They carbon copied me emails that was sent to the Minister of Justice into reconsidering the plate D-Day for approval. Right now, it's being considered by the registrar, but that apparently is the final step.
You've heard nothing specific back from the Justice Minister, though?
Not yet. They told me 5 to 7 business days. It should be up this Wednesday.
Okay, so you'll find out the decision hopefully from the registrar and or a response from the Justice Minister. Yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
How's all of this left you feeling? I mean, you've alluded to it a little bit along the way, but in terms of when you think about what your desire was to have this plate on your motorcycle and what's come back now in those 2 denial letters?
I just found it very frustrating, and I cannot comprehend how D-Day violates any of their guidelines. Like, D-Day is part of our history, and they should not be forgotten. Every day we're losing veterans from World War II, Korea, and even other conflicts that Canada has been involved with.
What do you understand about what your dad went through on D-Day?
Forgive me, I'm going to get a little bit emotional when I talk and remember that, because even as a child, like early teens, I remember pulling shrapnel from the back of his head and ears. But he served with the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders of Winnipeg, and he was third wave on Juno Beach on the 6th of June, 1944. He was in the Battle of Rouen, Carpiquet, Caen, and the Falaise Gap. Once the Battle of the Falaise Gap was over, they were heading north towards Belgium, and that's when my dad got seriously injured in his right leg.
How important would it have been for you to get this plate?
I have a lot of people approach me, talk about questions about my bike, and, if somebody asks why D-Day, and then I can give them a little bit of a history of what Canada went through.
I'm curious what the reaction has been from your family and friends to this happening to you.
They were shocked as much as me. Everybody that I know of that I spoke to, total disagreement, and MPI misjudged their decision. It's been mishandled. Right now, I'm in the third and final appeal process with the registrar. So I guess hope for the best, expect the worst.
Do you feel that they've explained enough to you about why D-Day constitutes a political or social movement?
It was very vague and very gray. It was such a political answer. I was just taken aback because, to me, it felt really weak.
What would you say to people about why it is not a political or social movement to acknowledge D-Day in your view?
In my view, it is not a political or social movement, but what it was, Canada making a footprint on saving people like all through Europe, all throughout the world. And to me, a political or social movement is something that happens now and not the past, because that is part of Canada's proud history.
That's Tim Yakubowicz. I spoke with him via Zoom yesterday. He's a retired veteran. He lives in the Brandon area. And CBC did reach out to MPI for a comment. It said, quote, Manitoba Public Insurance does not comment on matters pertaining to individual customers, end quote. It did go on to say that applications are not accepted if a slogan contravenes their guidelines. It says slogans will be denied if they are considered to be profane, derogatory, abusive, obscene, sexually suggestive, discriminatory, or if it incites violence or related to political and social movements. They did not elaborate on why Tim's D-Day plate was denied. He plans to try applying for a third time. And Tim did share with us the letter he got back from MPI. You heard he said he wasn't satisfied with the response. It also went on to say, quote, we realize slogans can have different meanings to different people, and our goal is to help ensure all Manitobans feel safe, respected, and welcome on our roadways. End quote. That's one of the other quotes from the letter. What do you think about this story and the request to have D-Day put on a license plate? We'd love to take calls. If you do call us, we can turn those calls around and get them on air after 8 and start a bit of a conversation here. So 788-3205, 788-3205. You can read more about the story at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Heather Wells is in now at 3 minutes to 8 o'clock with headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a parent who filed a human rights complaint against the Hanover School Division 7 years ago is troubled by new concerns about discrimination there. A controversial policy in the school division will give trustees final say in the hiring of gym and music teachers. Michelle McHale says principals and superintendents should be the ones hiring teachers, not trustees. And wives and girlfriends of Winnipeg Jets players have stepped up their whiteout gear. They've been wearing custom puffer jackets made from white heritage jerseys of the Jets. Michigan-based clothing designer Annika Roderick started working on those jerseys, on those jackets in early March, finishing them just in time for the playoffs. You've got to see them. You can see them on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
They are really nice looking. It is mostly cloudy. It's 1 degree in Winnipeg, and today's high is 12 with a mix of sun and cloud. We have had some calls here. Drew called the traffic line. There's a stalled truck in the curb lane on northbound Lash at Marion. Keep left to get around. And also we have had calls earlier about fog around Highway 12 around Steinbach, so that could be causing an issue. Highway 75 between St. Agatha and Morris is also down to one lane. So if anything's urgent, 788-3093, give Corey a call on the traffic line. Well, still ahead after 8 o'clock, some Canadians have decided to boycott Loblaws for the month of May. We're going to find out why one local family is taking part. We'll find out where they're planning to spend their money, and also why some people in that family have been boycotting for 2 years. Stay tuned.
On Cue with Tom Power.
I thought that somebody had abducted you, but it turns out you are just sleeping in.
Laura Ramoso has over 1 million followers on TikTok and Instagram, mainly for her hilarious impersonations of her German mom and Italian dad. The Toronto-based sketch comic will tell you about getting off the screen and back onto the stage in her new one-woman show. That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Last year, British Columbia decriminalized street drugs as part of a pilot project. Now, after a string of negative stories, the province is recriminalizing drugs in public spaces. We will look at the conflict and the evidence coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Protesters have barricaded themselves inside an administrative building at New York's Columbia University. Dozens of people stormed Hamilton Hall overnight during pro-Palestinian demonstrations. Others gathered outside. They want the university to sever all financial ties with Israel and Israeli institutions. School officials are now telling people to avoid the campus if they can. The CBC's Richard Madden is following the story. And Richard, what is the latest?
Yeah, tensions are escalating. Overnight, protesters smashed windows at one of its main academic buildings, blocking the entrance by stacking chairs and tables in front of it, refusing to leave the grounds. Now, many are covering their faces with masks and wearing helmets and forming a chain to stop students from going inside. Now, college leaders had warned those protesters to leave the encampment by 2 p.m. yesterday or be disciplined, insisting some have already been suspended. But as of now, hundreds of protesters are still on campus and aren't leaving. Some students say they've been threatened, even attacked by protesters as they tried to get inside.
They've just been targeting students, whomever they can find, calling them Zionists. And if you hear them, they chant, "We don't want no Zionists here." So to me, that's a genocidal call, and that's a threat.
Now, Columbia may be the epicenter of this protest movement, but it's happening on dozens of college campuses across the country: Pennsylvania, Virginia, California, even George Washington University here in D.C. Some commencement and graduation ceremonies have since been canceled as the unrest shows no signs of slowing down.
What are we hearing from school officials?
Yeah, they've said many of these protesters aren't actual students. Those who are have been suspended, but many of these protesters cite freedom of speech. Police have been called in to clear the area, but it isn't having much of an impact. And all this comes as Secretary of State Antony Blinken joined other world leaders in Jordan pushing for a ceasefire in Gaza. But as those talks continue, so do the protests.
All right, thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. Here at home, McGill University says it will work to de-escalate before asking for police to help with the encampment there. Dozens of tents are still pitched on the lawn of the school's downtown Montreal campus. Pro-Palestinian protesters have also set up an encampment at the University of British Columbia's Point Grey campus. New data from Statistics Canada shows Canada's GDP increased in February, but the 0.2% jump is less than what some economists had predicted. Data also show the economy likely expanded at an annualized rate of 2.5% in the first 3 months of the year. CBC senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong explains.
This is, once again, the story of an economy keeping its head ever so slightly above the water. Economists had thought they'd see a 0.4% gain. GDP in February came in well below that, but still eked out a small gain. And we also got the advance estimate for March. Now, this is just an estimate, and it will be subject to revisions, but it gives us the first picture of the full first quarter of this year. So it takes on an added importance. And you add them all together, and we have 0.5% in January, 0.2% in February, and StatCan says GDP was unchanged in March. So that's a better than many had expected strong first quarter. And yet it's also not really the sign of a booming economy either. If anything, it really does sort of thread the needle the Bank of Canada was looking for. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
We are watching the International Court of Justice this morning. This hour, the World Court will rule on a request from Nicaragua. It wants judges to order Germany to halt military aid to Israel. Nicaragua argued that Berlin's support enables acts of genocide and breaches of international law in Gaza. Germany argued that case has no basis in facts or law. British police say a 13-year-old boy has been stabbed to death. It happened this morning. A man with a long knife or sword started attacking people near a subway station in a London suburb. Chief Superintendent Stuart Bell says several people were injured.
During the incident, 5 people were injured, 3 members of the public and 2 of my local officers who were responding to the call. 2 of those members of the public remain in hospital. Thankfully, their injuries are not believed to be life-threatening.
A 36-year-old man has been arrested. Police say it does not appear this incident was terror-related. Efforts to reach a global treaty on plastic pollution are proving contentious. The 4th round of talks wrapped up in the early hours this morning in Ottawa. For the first time, negotiators started discussing some draft text for the treaty, but the delegate for Rwanda says it does not go far enough.
The proposal
for intercession work has decided to ignore the elephant in the room.
He says right now there is too much talk about recycling and reusing plastics, and the text needs to address plastic manufacturing. Rwanda and Peru helped launch the treaty talks. The committee has agreed to keep working on the proposed language. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni says she will stand as a candidate in June's European elections. But in a controversial move, she says she will not take a seat if she wins. It is all about attracting voters to her hard-right Brothers of Italy party, and it's a move more politicians in Italy are embracing. Megan Williams has more from Rome.
Ho deciso di scendere in campo per guidare le liste di Fratelli d'Italia in tutte le...
Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni announcing this week that she'll run for European elections in June as leader of her far-right Brothers of Italy party. But if elected a member of European Parliament, she'll give up her seat to a runner-up candidate. It's a controversial and mostly Italian practice, a way for big names in national politics to pull in more votes in European elections that most people here don't care about.
When it comes to European elections, Italian politicians see those elections as an opportunity for visibility and as an opinion poll on how a government is doing,
says Italy politics expert Cecilia Emma Sottilotta. Leaders of other political parties here are also lending their name to the European lists. But Meloni's taken it a step further, urging voters to simply pen her first name on the European ballot.
Ma il mio nome di battesimo, Giorgia.
Jurists say it's legal. But Sottilotta says the move shows Italy is returning to a kind of politics brought in by controversial former Prime Minister, the late Silvio Berlusconi.
We are once again seeing a strengthening of this trend of the personalization of politics, and it's all around Meloni, really.
Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
King Charles is back at work, resuming his public duties. He and Camilla are visiting a cancer treatment charity this morning. It marks King Charles' comeback. He had been sidelined for 3 months with his own cancer diagnosis. This is the first formal event since early February, and there will be several more public appearances in the coming weeks. The cost of everything is on the rise in Canada. Many families are feeling the pinch, especially those who buy baby formula. Statistics Canada says the cost of formula has gone up by 30% over the past 2 years, and that financial strain is forcing some parents to cut back on other essentials. The CBC's Jonathan Mignot has more.
We're at this point now where sometimes we do have to sacrifice. And
Caitlin Tan says she was able to feed her first child formula at a reasonable cost, but that was 8 years ago. The Sudbury, Ontario mom says feeding her 5-month-old is more of a struggle.
There have been months where we've had to go without paying our phone bill and ended up losing our service for a short time because we just, we had to put money towards formula and feeding our son.
Formula shortages are less common today than they were 2 years ago, but costs have continued to surge. According to Statistics Canada, the average price increased 30% between February 2022 and February 2024. Leslie Frank is the Canada Research Chair in Food, Health, and Social Justice at Acadia University in Nova Scotia. She has studied the high cost of baby formula and its effect on families for 15 years. While formula makers cite rising costs for ingredients and labor for rising formula prices, Frank says there could be another reason.
We hear less about the fact that the market around infant formula is not a competitive market, right? There's a few big players, and often what keeps prices low is competition.
Regulators in the United Kingdom are investigating the high infant formula costs in that country. Frank says it would take a similar investigation in Canada to get to the bottom of rising prices domestically. Jonathan Mignot, CBC News, Sudbury.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. Thanks so much for joining us on CBC. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Some sunshine this morning. see how long it continues for us. Abby has our forecast in a moment. Well, this half hour on the program, if you've been listening throughout the morning, then you heard earlier in our business news about how Loblaw is preparing to deal with boycotts across the country. It started on Reddit. It's a page that now has about 60,000 members, and a number of people across the country are planning to boycott Loblaw's own stores and subsidiaries for the month of May. So that is Superstore, Shoppers Drug Mart, and No Frills. We're going to hear from a Manitoba man who is taking part in the boycott this May. And in fact, some members of his family have been boycotting Loblaws for a little over 2 years. We'll find out more about why. First, so let's go to Heather Wells with other news and headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a retired soldier in Brandon is fighting Manitoba Public Insurance to get a license plate honoring his late father. Timothy Yakubowicz wants a personalized plate for his motorcycle. It would read D-Day. He says it's the best way to honor his father, a Second World War vet who fought on Juno Beach on D-Day. MPI has denied his request twice, saying the message could be linked to violence and is considered a, quote, political or social statement. And it is called Exercise Air Aware, and it happens at 11 this morning in Winnipeg. The city's emergency social services, the Canadian Red Cross, and some other organizations are doing a mock clean air center at Sergeant Tommy Prince Place. The city's emergency management coordinator says the city needs to be prepared in case there's poor air quality from wildfire smoke. We'll hear more about that. That happens at 11 this morning, but we'll hear more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Abby Adeyemi, it's starting chilly, but it's going to be nicer than yesterday by the end of the day, right?
Yes, that's correct. Right now we are at 0. It's dropped again. Sunny skies hanging overhead. Today we should be expecting a mix of sun and clouds, and we're getting to a high of 12. Tonight the clouds will increase, and then we're going to see showers overnight. Looking across the province, Brandon is currently seeing some freezing fog, and which will be clearing up later, and then aiming for a high of 13. Thompson currently mostly cloudy, a chance of showers later, a high of 7. Churchill is chilly, but getting a mix of sun and clouds, a high of +4. Dauphin is clear and sunny at heading to a high of 15. Gimli partly cloudy, high of 9. Steinbach and Morris both heading for a high of 12. And that fog patches at that part of the province is clearing up as we speak, and then we'll be getting to that high near 12. But for tonight, expect more clouds. Wednesday the 1st is looking like a cloudy start with showers in the morning and into the early afternoon. However, there's going to be some clearing later in the afternoon, and temperatures are expected to get to a high of 14 degrees in Winnipeg. So not to worry, after the rain tonight and then into tomorrow afternoon, we should be getting to a high of 14 degrees.
So we'll see. It could be a wet whiteout party depending, right? The fog you mentioned might have cleared in one area, but Brandon's now got a bit of fog. You getting calls in the traffic line, Corey, about anything?
Yeah, and actually hearing about fog all the way even into Winnipeg itself around Lajimodia as well. So someone was driving in from Steinbach into Winnipeg, said pretty much fog all the way. So do look out for that. Highway 12 in particular, heard about that earlier, as well as the Springfield area. So keep an eye out for that. A few stalls to keep an eye out for here in the city. Northbound Lajimodia at Marion in the curb lane, there is a stall heard from Drew. So keep left to get around that. That may be causing some backups as well. All morning, actually, one of the biggest issues has been a stalled van in the curb lane, northbound Route 90, right at Academy there before the St. James Bridge in the curb lane. So keep left to get around that. I heard from Jeff with the G just recently that's starting to get pretty backed up, but it is flowing. And actually, we got a call from Ayla, who just wanted to call to congratulate everyone on the great zipper merging. Which I think is a big deal. I think we've kind of hit a bit of a seed in the city because you, Abby, were actually complaining earlier about how we're not at where you were saying it's like everyone's zipper merging now, but no one's waving.
Yeah, that's my summer construction time pet peeves. You know, I let you in and you don't wave. That's a big problem. That's a big problem.
And I'm with you. I hate that.
Like it's a big problem. I take it personal. Like this is it's like I take it very like you can hear the very
like
very
road
personal.
rage inducing.
No road rage. I'm just personal.
Not a rage guy.
It's just personal. Like seriously, dude. I feel like pulling close to you and trying to school you. Like, this is courtesy. I was nice.
Sounds like
Okay, so listen, would you? Corey, I know, sounds like a. Would you trade the wave for proper merging though? If you're properly merging, but no time for a wave, but everything's going smoothly.
Maybe there should be a replacement. The wave comes before the merge, then I know you're civil. Because I just feel if you don't wave, something is wrong. It's a Winnipeg thing. it's like,
yeah.
I'm entitled to that.
Yeah.
I'm being entitled.
I will say this is a good sign, though. 2 years ago, we were just complaining about people weren't zipper merging. Now we're at the point where we're just complaining that people aren't waving while zipper merging. I think that's a good sign.
We've evolved.
We have evolved. So if you want to come and complain about the lack of waving as well, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let folks know that you're mad about it. 204-788-3093.
Well, most people have felt the sting of inflation at the grocery store. Things are getting more expensive. Packages in some cases are getting smaller. And one company that has been in the spotlight is Loblaws. Now, that's the parent company of Superstore, Shoppers Drug Mart, and No Frills. A number of people across Canada are planning to boycott Loblaws-owned stores and subsidiaries. The boycott emerged out of a Reddit group. The page now has about 60,000 members, and it is supposed to take place for the entire month of May. Jeff Gobeil and his girlfriend are taking part in the boycott, along with his extended family that has actually been boycotting Loblaws for a lot longer and have already been at it. And Jeff's on the line with us already. Good morning.
Good morning.
So how long have some of your extended family members been boycotting Loblaws?
I believe about 2 years now.
Wow. And you've decided to get on board in May. How come?
Yeah, well, I never participated in their boycott. Like I said, they've been going on for 2 years. But when I heard about boycotting in May and spending our dollar a little more consciously, I thought, okay, let's see how hard that is, because I'm not even sure what stores Loblaws owns and is a parent company to before any of this.
Got it. So it's Superstore, Shoppers Drug Mart, and No Frills. Have you already thought about where you're going to shop instead?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Sorry, I got a bit of a cold this morning.
It's okay, me too. My throat is... we'll be quite a pair.
But yeah, during the pandemic, there was this Pals Mart near my place when I lived in the North End, and we wanted for nothing. There was a lot of panic shopping, a lot of limit, only one thing of toilet paper, only one thing of Lysol wipes, and this Pals Market had everything, and they were happy to sell you and hang out and chat. So I thought it'd be nice to get back to that, go out of my way a little bit, go shop there, give them my business. Other little shops around the city, there's plenty of them.
So are you boycotting just Loblaws, or are you also going to be trying to bypass places like Save On Foods and Sobeys, some of the other bigger grocery chains?
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well, yeah. Walmart.
What's it been like for you trying to, tell me a bit about the grocery bills and what you've noticed in your family with products?
Yeah, so it was about a year and a half ago. This is a little bit of a backstory, but I actually made the decision to stop drinking. And I noticed that there was a lot more money in my wallet. And then over the last year and a half or so, I noticed there's no extra money, and my lifestyle hasn't really changed. And keeping track of my receipts, keeping my receipts actually has been a new practice for me. And I'm just noticing it's little spendings that add up, almost like treating granola bars like they're a special treat because they're extra expensive. I've had to make different decisions on cereals that I was buying. My budget has gone right out the window, and it's even hard to keep up with. Every time I feel like I have a grip on it, prices continue to rise. So it's almost felt like an evolving thing for the last year and a half.
You actually go so far as to use the term price gouging. Which is a serious allegation, but can you give us some examples of price increases specifically that led you to label it that?
Oh, God. No, I actually can't. I'm so sorry. I wish I had prepared something for that.
I was just wondering about the granola bars you mentioned, if you would have noticed how much they would have gone up by and trying to make sense of it.
I think last summer, maybe $3.50, $4, depending if I got them on sale or not. And then this year, I think I just spent $6.75 on the same box that just comes with 5 bars.
In terms of what prompted your extended family, some of your siblings, to be doing this for over 2 years, has it been Loblaw specifically as well, or have they made shifts to avoid major retailers?
No, they actually specifically mentioned Loblaws.
Earlier this morning, I want to play a clip here. We actually had this in our business news. So there's a list of demands that have come from people who are boycotting, as you likely know, including signing a grocery code of conduct and committing to affordable pricing. Here's what Ken Wong, who's a professor of marketing at Queen's University, had to say about whether or not a boycott will have an impact.
As far as retail sales go, I don't think it's going to make any difference at all, because frankly, when you look at the 5 major chains, there isn't a whole lot to distinguish between their pricing. So you can boycott Loblaws all you want, but if in boycotting Loblaws, you're simply moving your expenditure from Loblaws to another grocer, but not changing the size of your expenditure, because they're all responding to inflation, it's not going to have any impact.
What is your thought on that? That, if you've said you're going to go to, I think, a smaller independent grocer, and in that way sort of make your mark be known. But what are you going to do if you find prices are just the same as they were at Loblaw, that it goes further up the chain, and it's something to do with the supply chain,
Yeah, if my moving to smaller independent grocers has no effect on anything, for everyone participating at large, if it has no effect on anything, then I guess it almost comes down to me, how I feel where I shop certain places. If I don't feel good popping into Safeway, popping into Superstore, then I'll just continue to shop at the small grocers. They're cool people.
In a statement, Loblaws spoke to CBC Business News, saying, quote, "As a business, we're acutely aware of the fact that we have to win our customers' business each and every day. The last few years, they say, have been tough for Canadians. We continue to do what we can to combat inflation at our stores," end quote. What would Loblaws have to do to win back your business?
I think the demands, the 2 demands that were made, signing the code of conduct and some more affordable pricing, that's good for me.
Jeff,
and maybe get rid of those self-check things. I hate those.
Jeff, thank you very much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
That's Jeff Gobil. He's taking part in a Loblaw's boycott for the month of May. In an email statement to CBC Business as well, a Loblaw spokesperson also went on to say customers are, quote, "getting real value at our stores, often the best across the industry," end quote. It went on to say, as a business, we are acutely aware of the fact, as I mentioned, that we have to win back our customers' business. So tomorrow we're going to continue talking about this on the show. We have a grocery industry expert on. We're going to ask in more detail if he thinks a boycott by some Canadians will impact Loblaws at all.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
8:23 a.m. is the time right now. It is mostly sunny in downtown Winnipeg, but you can see the clouds hanging around as well. 0 is our current temperature, and for the day, mix of sun and cloud, and a high of 12 degrees in the city of Winnipeg. Tonight, there's a chance of showers overnight, so we'll see if things stay dry in the downtown for the whiteout party for Jets Game 5, and all the fans are going to be gathering. Well, speaking of things that are starting, the Winnipeg Comedy Festival, so there's going to be all kinds of different shows going on over the next number of weeks, and we're going to try to send 2 lucky listeners to see a taping of The Debaters. So for a chance to win, we asked you to tell us your best mom jokes, because we know dad jokes have had their moment. So we thought we'd give it to mom. So take that any way you want. You've been calling the listener line.
Simon Laplante. Here's my mom's joke. 2 cats are having a swimming race. One cat is called 1, 2, 3. The other cat is called 1, 2, 3. Who won the race? 1, 2, 3, because 1, 2, 3, cat sank.
You can tell I like that one. That was great. 788-3205. Listen, we're taking jokes until noon today, and then the contest closes, and later in the week on our program, we will announce the winners, and maybe we'll get them on the air here as well, because if you win, you don't just win a chance to go to the Debaters taping at the Comedy Festival, but you win the chance to get up on stage and share your mom joke with the audience. So super fun. We're getting some lovely entries. 788-3205. You can also email win@cbc.ca. Well, it is 8:25 a.m. and Corey is actually working on getting some of your comments to air on another story. So earlier this morning and in the news this morning, we're about to hear more about a retired veteran who lives in Brandon, the Brandon area rather. He says that MPI denied him a personal license plate that says D-Day. He's still fighting to get it. He wanted to get the plate, and they have said that it was denied for various reasons. But we asked you what you thought of that.
Hi, my name is Kathy Morris. I think it's reprehensible that this happened, and it's an insult not only to everyday Canadians, but certainly to our past and present members of the Canadian military who are standing up for our country. This isn't a political slogan, it's a piece of our history, and to deny that is totally flummoxing me. This was a huge campaign to liberate parts of Northwest Europe from the Nazi occupation. It's not a piece of fluff like you see for some of the license plates. And I wonder who is making these decisions at MPI and how the average citizen might leverage our disgust and get a hold of MPI and let them know what we think of their decision-making process.
Well, we no sooner got that listener line in and on the air, and during it, I actually saw an email that has just come into me from the producer who is working on this story and initially lined up Mr. Yakubowicz to be on the program this morning. And Tim wrote to us an update. And so late last night, and we have just learned this. So we have just learned this. I've just opened my email to see this. MPI did approve the license plate that says D-Day. So we might learn more about initially why it was not approved and how they make the decisions around various plates. As you heard, you've been weighing in on the story this morning. He was initially turned down twice by MPI. And so it has now gone through. So Tim Yakubowicz will be riding around his motorcycle in honor of his own service. He's a veteran himself, and also of his father's service. His father served directly in D-Day. So that's an update to this story this morning that has just come in real time. It is 8:28 a.m. right now on 89.3 FM, 990 AM or on the app. And Janet Stewart's popped in the studio. Good morning. Good morning, Marcy. Oh, get your mic on there.
I do, don't I?
There you go. Now it's on. Good morning to you. You are working on a topic that is near and dear to my heart today.
Sleep.
Sleep.
We already have received some caller comments. So please, if sleep is an issue for you, that is the topic of our calling conversation today at 12:30 on Radio Noon. If you can't join us at 12:30, the number to call right now is the listener line, 204-788-3797. We have the former Executive Director of the Sleep Lab joining us to give feedback on things that work for people to sleep, to answer your questions, and to talk about the issue of exhaustion that many of us suffer from. Why is it that we are so tired? You know, we thought about this topic for today because of the late start of the Jets game tonight. Of course, so many people are going to be tired tomorrow. So I'll be asking things like, okay, when that midday slump hits, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, what's the best way? And when should you see a doctor? When's it a problem? We want your questions, so please join us for the Radio Noon call-in. We'll open the live lines today at 12:30.
It could be really busy. You know what? If you're a person that cannot sleep and it disrupts your life, I mean, it affects everything, as we know, right?
And there are so many people. The woman who called in and left a message for us has been talking about perimenopause and menopause. So many changes in life impact our sleep. What about teenagers? What about kids? It's just a part of being a human being, sometimes struggling with sleep.
Learn to get better at it between 12:30 and 1. How's that for a bill? Thank you, Janet.
Very good. Thank you, Marcy.
788-3797 is the listener line. 788-3797, the Radio Noon listener line.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. So that's the calling conversation between 12:30 and 1 o'clock this afternoon on Radio Noon. We're coming up to news time at 8:30 here on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. In the city of Winnipeg, some sundown town. We have had a couple things going on in traffic this morning. So that fog actually is still hanging around. We thought it was dissipating kind of around Steinbach, but we still continue to get calls that it could be an issue, not just to the west, but to the east as well. So that's fog around Steinbach. Also around Brandon, you could be having some fog issues as well still this morning. So although it's late in the drive, take it easy, and you can always still update us with 788-3093. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is 4 degrees out at the airport, but 0 downtown. So you take your pick which one you'd prefer. 4 at the airport, 0 downtown. Lots of sunshine, though. Still on the cool side, though. The normal high this time of year is 16. Today, our high is 12. A parent who filed a human rights complaint against the Hanover School Division 7 years ago is troubled by new concerns about discrimination. A controversial policy will give trustees final say in the hiring of gym and music teachers. Some parents want the province to remove 6 trustees. They have a petition suggesting the policy is a way to eliminate diversity. Michelle McHale says principals and superintendents should be the ones hiring teachers. She says history shows Hanover trustees need oversight.
Training isn't enough in those situations. And if we have a board that's putting forth proposals that by design are discriminatory and exclusionary, who helps the board with those decisions when they have blind spots or gaps that maybe they don't understand?
Another parent group supports the school board's new policy. The education minister is going to meet with trustees there this week. What would you do in the case of an air quality emergency? The city of Winnipeg says it wants to be prepared. So at 11 this morning, it is conducting a mock exercise at Sergeant Tommy Prince Place on Sinclair Street. It is called Exercise Air Aware. The city says the simulation will help practice setting up and delivering support, including registration, food service, and health assessments. The city's emergency management coordinator says the city needs to be prepared in case there is poor air quality from things like wildfire smoke. The latest rounds of talks on global plastic pollution treaty have come to an end in Ottawa. And while the delegates on hand failed to agree on a draft text, the EU representative believes there is reason for optimism.
We support your proposal, Mr. Chair, which in our opinion presents a carefully crafted balance between work on technical matters and means of implementation. It may not be perfect, but we believe it is a good compromise.
However, the Rwandan delegation, which helped kickstart this process, has some concerns. It believes there's too much focus on expanding recycling and not enough on limiting manufacturing of plastics. A 5th round of talks are scheduled for later this year in South Korea. The Whiteouts back in Winnipeg, and that means getting around downtown today is going to be a little tricky. Streets around Canada Life Centre start closing at 9 this morning, so in about half an hour. Among the streets closing, southbound Donald between Portage and St. Mary Avenue. Both directions of Graham between Hargrave and Smith. Transit buses are also being rerouted in that area. And starting at noon, sidewalks will close as well on Donald, along with the north side of Graham. The wives and girlfriends of Winnipeg Jets players may have the public beat when it comes to whiteout gear. They have been wearing custom puffer jackets made from white heritage jerseys of the Jets. Michigan-based clothing designer Anika Roderick started working on these jackets in early March, finishing just in time for the playoffs. Roderick says what started out as a request for one jacket quickly turned into an entire roster.
I was like, am I reading this right? Like, is this for real? And I didn't even think twice. I didn't know how I was going to do it, how I was going to work the logistics, but I was just like, yes, I can do it. And it just went from there.
Roderick says it takes almost a full day just to make one jacket. She hopes they'll be worn all the way to the Stanley Cup final. But first, The Jets have to win tonight. It is do or die as the Jets trail Colorado 3-1. It's another late start. Puck drop tonight is at 8:30. You can see what these jackets look like, by the way. They're really stylish. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
They are really stylish. You're right. Very cool. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells in our news department this morning with Megan Ketcherson and Joni Nicolo. Thank you, guys. Thanks to our hardworking team of associate producers, as well as our leaders in unit, Leif Larson and Nellie Gonzalez. Thanks to our live crew, Brad Lillies, Abby Adiyemi, and Corey Funk behind the glass. Well, usually, but Corey's here now. What's up?
Look out for a couple stalls. Northbound La Jamodière at Marion, there is a stalled truck in the curb lane, so keep left to get around that. As well, all morning, Kenniston at Academy going northbound, there's been a stalled van, so keep left to get around that. That has been causing some backups. Folks have been zipper merging, but it is still a bit slow going there. Might see some fog, particularly on the south perimeter or just southeast Steinbach Highway 12 area. That may also be causing issues for folks as well. And finally on the highways, Highway 75, just a reminder, if you are planning to head north or south on Highway 75 today, it's down to one lane both ways. That whole southbound lane, both the southbound lanes between St. Agath and Morris is closed for road construction, and it's down to 80 kilometers per hour going both ways. So you just got one lane. It's a little slower than usual on Highway 75.
Thanks, Corey. Abby?
Yes, what we're seeing is a chilly start in this last day of April, and it's 0 right now in Winnipeg. It's going to be a cool day. We're expecting a mix of sun and clouds to stay with us all day. And just to remind you, we are below our seasonal high. We just 12. We're getting to a high of 12 in the city today. Across the province, the highs would range from 4 degrees. That's in Churchill, and then the highest will be Dauphin, hovering around 15.
And just a reminder, if you're out there on the roads, make sure to wave if you're zipper merging, because it might be Abby behind you and it might make him really mad.
Please.
Might make him really mad. He's a big waver. He expects a wave.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. We're back again tomorrow with Information Radio here on CBC, and we'll see if our hockey team made it through. Take care. The Current's coming up next.